with Rocker's comments. They have no right to do anything that harms him or puts other people in jeopardy, like throwing things or engaging in anything that amounts to criminal conduct. When people look at this series, they should say, gee, people in New York are really true baseball fans, and they don't get involved in all these irrelevancies.
Sometimes history repeats itself. Tonight, the most controversial pitcher in the major leagues returns to Shea.
We'll show him that we're true New Yorkers. Of course, if he gets on the mound, we're going to disrespect him with the long ball. That's the best way we can show him what he deserves.
Can't believe this is all for Rocker. This is like a World Series atmosphere.
New York fans should just stand up and turn their backs on him, because that's what he deserves.
Let's rock the Rocker. Everybody, we got to rock the Rocker. Whoa!
The Mets, who last year lost to the Braves in the National League Championship Series, invite the first-place Atlanta Braves and the explosive John Rocker into the hot summer night at Shea Stadium. Next on Fox Sports Net.
Number 7 train pulls into the Shea Stadium stop without John Rocker on board as Fox Sports Net welcomes you to Baseball Thursday for the most anticipated regular season game in years as John Rocker and the Braves take on the New York Mets in the first of a 4-game series here at Shea in Flushing, New York. The Braves in first place in the National League East, the Mets who have won 7 in a row, just 2 games back. As we welcome you to a wild evening here at Shea Stadium, I'm Kenny Albert. I'll be joined by Jeff Torborg and Steve Lyons. The well-chronicled John Rocker situation has overshadowed what should be a terrific series. Mets and Braves battling for first place in the National League East. They have not met on the baseball field since the classic NLCS last October. Since then, for the 25-year-old Braves pitcher John Rocker, the last 8 months have probably felt like 8 years. Let's take a look back.
When they're up there, you know, 8 or 12 beers deep into it, it's kind of difficult to hit an object, you know, like me running in from the bullpen 200 feet away. So, you know, the fear factor's not really there like they think it is. Just didn't think the Mets fans were showing us the kind of respect that they should have showed us for a team that had beaten their team 9 out of 12 times during the regular season.
Every time you see a black person, you're going to have to explain.
Commissioner Bud Selig has suspended Braves reliever John Rocker until May 1st.
The media's been completely oblivious to my privacy, my family's privacy, and they've really overstepped their bounds in a lot of areas. And I think it's just time for a little payback.
This is a good baseball team, a team that has the best record in baseball, and it seems like all we ever hear about the Atlanta Braves is the problems with John Rocker.
Almost every batter he's faced has been getting on lately, and we've been bailing him out, and we can't go on like that forever.
John was doing most of the talking. In fact, I would say he did 99.9% of the talking.
What's the deal? When are you going to, what are you going to, Toledo?
Wow.
I don't know. I'm going down there. I'm still pretty chatty about the whole situation.
Turn the camera off, dude. Seriously, get out of here.
The best way to deal with Mr. Rocker, whatever you think of his comments, is not to engage in activity similar to his or even worse.
Well, Jeff Torborg, let's fast forward 3 hours from now. 9th inning, Braves up by a run. Does manager Bobby Cox do anything out of the ordinary?
I don't think he does. He's going to try to win the game. How's he won the game over the last couple of years? He goes to his ace reliever. Rocker still throws 97 to 100 miles an hour. I think he'll use him. They haven't played one another since last October. There's a lot in this series. They're playing for first place, and Bobby Cox isn't going to change too much.
Mets have won 7 in a row. They trail the Braves by only 2 games in the National League East. Mets were 7 games back on June 1st, but the Braves under 500 during the month of June. John Burkett will replace the ill Greg Maddux for the Braves. Rick Reed starts for the Mets, but the big story, will he or won't he? John Rocker back in New York. To Shea Stadium as we get set for the New York Mets and the Atlanta Braves. Steve Lyons is with us tonight, and he caught up just moments ago with John Rocker.
Are you apprehensive at all? Are you afraid? What? Just the atmosphere here? Playoff atmosphere. It is. If you could make it go away, would you?
Steve using a very unique interviewing style out of the Braves bullpen. The first pitch coming up. Mets and Braves, first of a 4-game series here at Shea. Baseball Thursday on Fox Sportsnet is brought to you by American General Financial Group, helping over 12 million people live the life they've imagined, live the life you've imagined. By Nissan, driven. By McDonald's, did somebody say McDonald's? And by True Value, where help is just around the corner. Welcome back. Shea Stadium, Flushing, New York, for the Braves and the Mets, the first of 4. Mets coming off a 3-game sweep of the Florida Marlins. And they trail the Braves by only 2 games in the NL East. For Atlanta, Silvio Veras, the second baseman, will lead off, followed by center fielder Andrew Jones. Third baseman Chipper Jones bats third. Then the first baseman Andres Galarraga. Right fielder Brian Jordan will bat 5th. Former Met Bobby Bonilla in the number 6 spot. Javi Lopez, the catcher, bats 7th. Then the shortstop Walt Weiss. And the pitcher John Burkett against 34-year-old right-hander Rick Reed. Reed with a record of 4-1 in his 14 starts as Silvio Veras takes ball 1. Veras spent 5 years in the Mets system. He was signed as a free agent by the Mets back in '89. He advanced all the way to AAA Norfolk. And then he was traded by the Mets to the Marlins in exchange for Carl Everett, as we take a look at the Rick Reed scouting report.
Well, Rick Reed really has to locate. He's got to keep the ball down. He's got a couple fastballs, basically a sinking 2-seamer. Big breaking curveball, slurve and a cutter. Use the cutter in on left-handed, and a great changeup.
And there it is, but Reed misses for ball 2. Coming off a poor start Saturday night, he lasted only 3 innings against the Pirates. Reed allowed 8 hits over the first 2 innings in that game, but came away with a no decision as the Mets won 10-8. Now 2-2 on the leadoff man, Silvio Veras. I mentioned the Veras for Carl Everett Mets-Marlins deal. Look at what they have both done since then.
Yeah, it's very interesting. The 3 top prospects at the time in the Mets organization were second basemen: Veras, Alfonso, and Vina. And they all have become very good major league players.
The 2-2 to Veras, he gets a piece of it.
You know, the thing watching Reed, Reed's a big game pitcher. He knows how to pitch. The only thing anybody might worry about, he's had a problem in the past of injuring himself with his hands or his legs, but he has got to be right on the money down in the strike zone. But he has excellent idea of how to pitch.
The count is now full. Reed was extremely successful against the Braves last year. During the regular season, he allowed only 2 earned runs in 2 starts and 12 1/3. And he also started game 4 of the NLCS. Allowed 2 runs on 3 hits in 7 innings. Ball 4, so Reed, who leads the National League in fewest walks per 9 innings, walks the leadoff man, Silvio Veras. As we take you around the horn for the Mets in the field, Todd Zeile at first base. Edgardo Alfonso at second. 6-time Gold Glove Award winner Robin Ventura at third. Melvin Mora, replacing the injured Ray Ordonez, is the shortstop. Benny Agbayani in left. Jay Payton, no errors this season, the center fielder. And over and right, Derek Bell. Mike Piazza behind the plate. So the battery of Reed and Piazza working together once again tonight against the first place Braves. Runner on first, nobody out. Andrew Jones takes a called strike. Rocky Rowe is the home plate umpire tonight. Brian Runge working first base. Ed Rapuano out at second. And John Shulak is the third base umpire. 0-1 on Andrew Jones, batting .320 with 21 home runs. Pitch out, now 1-1.
Well, the pitch out obviously is the Mets thinking that you're going to get a stolen base situation with Veras here, but you can pitch out a couple times in everybody's count with Reed normally because he has such good command. As a manager, you're not afraid to pitch out when you have a pitcher who can throw strikes.
Bounce foul back behind third base, now 1-2 on Andrew Jones with Chipper Jones waiting on deck.
Andrew Jones is basically a free swinger, but he's just getting better and better. You mentioned before he's hitting .320. He's got outstanding power. When you talk about players, 5-tool players can do it all. Run, throw, field, hit with power. This kid can do it.
Veras short lead off first. There goes Veras. Here's the throw from Piazza. He got him.
Kenny, Mike Piazza got this ball off well. It was high, but Melvin Moore at second base. Watch how quickly Piazza gets it off. The throw's alive, but look at Moore block him off with his knee. I'll take a second look at this one. Here's the throw. Here goes Veras and tagged him way down on his leg, but I'll tell you in the replay of this, he looks like he's safe, but Moore blocked him off. That is not technically legal to block off a base for an infielder. Cut off the left arm of Veras getting in. So we'll take another look at this. Here comes Veras. Watch Moore's knee go down. Blocked the base off. Blocked off his left arm, but his right arm is around, I think, grabbing the base on the other side. I'm not sure the umpire saw the other hand around the back of that left leg. Veras with 21 steals this year has now been thrown out 9 times. Andrew Jones is this one in the air to center, and the catch is made by Jay Payton for the second out. You know, you look for little things in a game like this. When you have two teams that are very evenly balanced, and you got this Mets team that is so good defensively, as Chipper Jones is hearing it, if you remember last year, they would chant, Larry, Larry. He handled the chants well. He smiled back. John Rocker, on the other hand, hollered back. But a play like Piazza throwing out a guy like Veras in the middle of this big order, and when things could happen, that could be a very big play for the Mets.
Larry, of course, is Chipper's given name, and the crowd picks up where they left off in October.
Well, it's interesting. You know, there's so much been made of John Rocker's situation, how he taunted the fans and went back at the fans. They did an awful lot to him, too, as that pitch misses low and away. But everybody who has ever played this game at the major league level, minor league level, have been taunted by fans. They've had things thrown at them. It's how you diffuse a situation. And Chipper Jones did it last year. He just smiled back and let it roll off his back.
And he did it with his bat. 400 average against the Mets last year with 7 home runs in 12 games.
Well, that's the best way to do it. I remember as far back as 1964, a rookie with the Dodgers. I was on the on-deck circle here. I got hit in the back with an orange from the upper deck. Somebody had good aim. But I'll tell you what, they were doing it even then, so it's not anything new. You just have to live with that kind of thing.
The 1-2. Reed just missing on the inside corner. 2 balls, 2 strikes.
Of course, maybe I was overweight and I was a big target, but you know, that happens in every ballpark throughout baseball. People getting on. You've got to learn to live with that.
The 2-2 from Reed. And the count is full with 2 outs here in the top of the first inning. Bobby Valentine on the left, Bobby Cox on the right. These teams have not seen each other since Game 6 of the NLCS in October, as Chipper fouls this one back.
And these two teams don't particularly care for one another. When you have teams that are vying against one another in a same division and they're playing so hard trying to win, the Mets trying to establish themselves, the Braves already established, there becomes a real animosity inside, maybe not unspoken. That ball was fouled off. That was a high off off-speed pitch that was kind of sinking, and Chipper Jones just fouled off. There's Bobby Bonilla. There's a connection to both teams. Of course, when Bobby's name was mentioned in the lineup pregame here, boy, did he get a lot of boos. He might take a little heat off of John Rocker here. When I was managing the Mets, Bobby Bonilla was with us. I never saw a player take such abuse as Bobby Bonilla did here.
Bonilla, a two-time net, returned last year. The payoff pitch to Chipper Jones in the dirt, and that is the second walk issued by Reed here in the first inning. Coming into the game tonight, Reed led the National League, having walked only 1.2 batters per 9 innings. Our league leaders brought to you by Toyota.
Well, what happens sometimes when you get in a game of this magnitude, there's a lot of electricity out here, obviously, and if you're Rick Reed, you might try to overthrow a little bit. He is the type of guy that likes to keep the ball down, as we mentioned, and he has to keep it down. But if you feel a little too strong and gunned up, you'll get the ball up in the zone.
Here's the big cat, Andres Galarraga. What a story Galarraga has been, coming back after missing all of last year. Batting .302, 18 home runs. He's driven in 56. As you see, one hit away from 2,000.
You can also see he almost got hit with that pitch. He gets hit more than any hitter in the game nowadays, and part of it is the way he approaches at the plate. Stands with an open stance taught to him by Don Baylor, who is now the Cubs manager, but when he was with St. Louis, this allowed him to see the ball with both eyes, but he has to dive into the plate from this stance.
Galarraga, a line shot into center. It gets by Payton. Jay Payton chasing it to the wall. Coming in to score is Chipper Jones. Galarraga in at third. And the Braves strike first. We mentioned earlier, Jay Payton has not committed an error all season. The Mets center fielder. And his mistake leads to the first run of the game.
Kenny, I don't know. Sometimes balls that are hit when they're that hard hit might have been a knuckleball, meaning that the ball was hit right behind it. This ball looked like it moved on him. It was high enough that he could get the glove on it, but at the last minute, it had some downward action. I've seen that happen to real good outfielders. The ball's hit so hard, and at the last minute, it knuckles.
Brian Jordan takes strike one. Well, the official score says no error. It's a triple for Galarraga. He drives in his 57th run, his first triple of the season.
Well, they're going to be commenting about Payton missing that ball, but I'll tell you what, I think there's very much extenuating circumstances involved, and I think that was a bullet. Nice play by Piazza. Here's the play or the situation where a catcher is so important to a pitcher, especially a pitcher who uses a lot of off-speed pitches and stays down in the zone when there's a runner at third base. Mike Piazza is just in his mind, anytime he calls a pitch now, is anticipating the ball in the dirt.
Now 3-1 on Jordan.
Now remember, when we talked in the scouting report, we're talking about Rick Reed throws a sinker. He also throws like a screwball changeup, a downer curveball. All those pitches can go in the dirt very easily.
Ground ball to the second baseman, Alfonso. Over to first. And that will do it for the Braves, but they score a run on the Galarraga triple and lead the Mets 1-0. A run at the top of the first for the Atlanta Braves. They lead the Mets 1-0. Mets winners in 7 consecutive games. They are a season-high 13 over the 500 mark. The shortstop, Melvin Mora, leads off, followed by right fielder Derek Bell. Second baseman, Edgardo Alfonso, bats third. Mike Piazza has an RBI and a club record 11 straight games. Also has a 16-game hitting streak. Robin Ventura bats fifth. Todd Zeile sixth. Down the bottom of the order, Jay Payton, Benny Agbayani, and Rick Reed. Against 35-year-old right-hander John Burkett, replacing the scheduled Braves starter Greg Maddux, who is ill.
Well, Burkett is a guy who's been around at 35, as you mentioned, Kenny. He's got 2 types of fastballs. Neither of them have a lot of stuff on them. Big, slow curveball. He's got a little sharp slider. Changeup, it sinks, but he better be a control type pitcher because his stuff is limited, but he has been around.
12th year in the majors. First 6 with San Francisco, then Florida, Texas. Braves his 4th club as Melvin Mora leads off. The Mets shortstop replacing Ray Ordonez, who's out for the year with a broken arm, and Mora has been sizzling at the plate. 8-game hitting streak, batting .405 during that stretch. He is 11 for his last 17.
This is a kid who's been in the Mets minor leagues for a while and then came of age last year in the playoffs. He stepped up, he had a big home run, and he can play anywhere. In the spring, I watched him play center field, and he's played in the infield, obviously.
He's played 6 positions this year for the Mets, all 3 outfield positions, second base, third base, shortstop. Hit his first major league home run against the Braves in the NLCS. Also had 4 assists from the outfield in the playoffs. Called strike 2. 2-2 on Melvin Mora. Mora, Bell, and Alfonso here in the first inning for the Mets. John Birkin making his 11th start, his 17th appearance of the season. He's 5-3 with an earned run average over 5.14. Went to spring training with the Devil Rays. They released him. Signed with the Braves. He's 4-9 lifetime against the Mets. Mora into center. Andrew Jones makes it look easy. Braves tied for 4th defensively in the National League with Andres Galarraga, who drove in the Braves run at first base. Gilby O'Harris at second. Chipper Jones over at third. The shortstop was Walt Weiss. Bobby Bonilla in left field. Andrew Jones, 2 consecutive Gold Glove awards in center. Brian Jordan in right. Javi Lopez behind the plate. The battery of Burkett and Lopez. Here's Derek Bell, who takes ball 1. Bell batting .302, working on a 9-game hitting streak. 4 Mets, in fact, have hitting streaks of 8 or more games. Bell takes a called strike. 1-1. He was the, quote, throw-in in the Mike Hampton deal from the Houston Astros. As we check out Burkett's numbers.
Both these pitchers tonight have got to keep the ball down, move the ball around, and change speeds. They both have given up more hits than innings pitched, which gives you a little idea that the hitters are on them. The fact that Rick Reed is so stingy with walks until tonight is a major factor as Bell hits a rocket into the stands in left field. Derek Bell, you talked about, that's what they were talking about, his being a throw, and this guy has had some outstanding years. Of course, he started out with the Toronto Blue Jays, went to San Diego. Houston, he had been one of those guys that has one real good year and then not so good year. There are years where he hits for big average, then he hits for power. Part of that is he changes his stances so much. When he spreads his feet way out, he hits for average. When he stands more upright, his feet close together, he's looking at the long ball.
His average this year has been as high as .360.
Now you can see what he's done. Minor League Player of the Year, that tells you the kind of talent he has. On that Blue Jays World Series championship team. Then he got a chance to play with other organizations.
Towering pop-up. Chipper Jones down the left field line makes the catch. 2 away.
Now this is a tough play. You know, you see it made all the time in the major leagues, but for a first baseman or third baseman, turning them back and going down the line, it's a very difficult play. Normally you like to see the shortstop get over, but Walt Weiss had no way that he was going to get over near that ball. Nice play by Chipper Jones.
So with 2 outs, here's the Mets second baseman, Edgardo Alfonzo. Alfonso tied for 9th in the National League, batting average of .340. And Bobby Valentine, his manager, feels it would be a crime if he is not selected by Bobby Cox for the All-Star game in Atlanta.
Oh, this guy is a fine player. He is really a true professional. He's still a real young guy, but he knows how to play the game. He's a tough out. You know who he reminds me of? Edgar Martinez of the Seattle Mariners. He doesn't quite stand with his hands wrapped around his head like Edgar, but they're very professional people, very professional hitters. Now add to that, Alfonso is a Gold Glove type second baseman, and he runs very well. But here's a guy who's tough to figure out how to pitch him. The thing that amazes me, he's a very selective hitter, uses the entire field, meaning that occasionally he'll shoot the ball down a right field line when you're trying to get him out of the way. But if you make a mistake inside where he really likes the ball, he'll turn around and hit it out of the ballpark. Remember that game we did here last year with the Braves? He had a big home run that tied the game in the 8th.
That was in the last week of September. As Mike Piazza waits on deck, Braves and Mets played 6 times in the final 2 weeks of last season. Atlanta won 5 of the 6. Mets wound up as the wild card. Alfonso into right. Ryan Jordan. A 1-2-3 first inning for John Burkett, replacing Brett Maddox on the mound tonight for the Braves. Back at Shea as we head to the second, 1-0 lead for Bobby Cox and the Atlanta Braves. On the RBI triple off the bat of Andres Galarraga, driving in Chipper Jones in the first inning. Well, the boos you may hear from the Shea Stadium crowd are a welcome for Bobby Bonilla, the 2-time Met, who is from New York. He's from the Bronx, but is not a favorite, to say the least, here at Shea Stadium.
No, he isn't. And I spent a little over, about short of 2 years with him and trying my darndest to help try to protect him. There were certain situations he got himself into here, and part of it was the pressure of the fans who worked him over and expected him to be Superman, and he tried to explain he wasn't.
Remember when Bobby first came to the Mets, he told the local media, "You will not be able to wipe the smile off my face."
I know, I was in that press conference and I went, "Oh no."
Base hit right field. So Bobby Bonilla, who coming into the game was only 6 of 33 during the month of June, leads off the second inning with a single to right. Coming up after the game on the National Sports Report, Pedro Martinez on the DL. Yankees and the Indians, a trade. You'll find out about it later on the National Sports Report. Steve Lyons will not be in the studio in Los Angeles. Why? He is here with us tonight. Steve.
Well, guys, right now the atmosphere down here is actually pretty calm. It's like a normal baseball game. The reaction for Bobby Bonilla is probably quite a bit worse than maybe John Rocker will ever see. I think what you want to look for right now is the Braves up 1-0. That's the time when you're going to see Rocker pitch. I think we're all just waiting for that situation to come out. This isn't even a sold-out house, and the people right now are reacting very nicely so far. Bonilla's got the worst reaction. Back to you guys.
All right, thanks, Steve. Jeff, I'm actually a little concerned about the reaction if Steve walks around the concourse.
He does such a good job, but you wonder walking through the stands like this, make sure you don't have any Braves colors on. That's the key, I think, or have anything close to Rocker's number on any apparel that you have.
And don't get in the way. If you're Steve Lyons, you don't want to block anyone's view.
No. But I think he's right. I don't feel as much of an electricity in the air right now as I have at other times, but that can change very quickly. The farther you go into this game, there might be a late arriving crowd, and things might change as this game continues.
Bobby Lopez pops one foul. We certainly felt it before the game. When we were up here in the booth preparing, we looked down to the field, there were at least 100 media members, still photographers, cameramen, camerawomen. We saw Steve Lyons' brief chat with John Rocker out in the bullpen just moments before the start of the game, but you certainly felt it walking into the stadium with the security guards, the extra media, the television trucks out in the parking lot. And there are some of the security guards, New York's finest, out of the Braves bullpen underneath the makeshift canopy, which is not usually there. Jeff, I think we went the entire first inning without mentioning the name John Rocker. Ground ball, second base. Alfonso flips to Moore. Over to first, double play. The Mets turn the 4-6-3.
We were talking about the Mets having set a record last year defensively. It's a different infield that they have without John Olerud and without Ray Ordonez. But Edgardo Alfonso is so steady. You see how he took this, no panic, and even Mora did not get excited. He knew how the running speed was of Javi Lopez, a catcher, and they were in no hurry. They made sure the one came across the base and made a good throw. This is a very good defensive infield.
Walt Weiss takes strike one. Last year, the Mets set a major league record. They committed only 68 errors all season. Only 27 committed by their starting infielders. And of course, John Olerud was the first baseman last year. Ray Ordonez was the shortstop. Todd Seal has replaced Olerud. Mora filling in for the injured Ordonez. So Alfonso and Ventura are the constants. Weiss into the right field corner. It's a foul ball.
Well, you're not normally going to see any balls that go a long way when you're seeing Walt Weiss hit, especially from the left side, but he tends to pull the ball. Even though he looks like a slap type hitter, being a switch hitter, he hits a lot of balls right down the right field line.
One and two on Weiss. 2 outs, top second. Braves with a 1-0 lead. Off-speed pitch, slow roller towards first. Seal applies the tag. If Weiss will let him. And that will do it for the Braves in the second. One hit, and then Bonilla erased on a double play. Back at Shea at about 6:20, 45 minutes before game time, John Rocker held a press conference meeting with hundreds of media members here at Shea.
About my presumed hatred for the people of New York. The comments I made over 6 months ago offended many people. I'm fully aware of this, and for that I sincerely apologize. The situation, however, has become a distraction to many of my teammates. Unfortunately, many members of the media have overestimated my significance. I'm merely a baseball player, guys. And in the great scheme of things, my thoughts, opinions, and attitudes are of little importance.
And there is Braves pitching coach Leo Mazzoni as Mike Piazza takes a call strike. Rocker went on to say, he spoke for about 4 or 5 minutes. He said, I am also fully aware that the overwhelming majority of the people in New York City are extremely charismatic and full of personality, although a bit spirited at times, but that doesn't make them bad people. I would like to put the situation behind me. Piazza drills one to right, and the catch is made by Jordan, just shy of the warning track. Rocker said, please allow the fans, the Atlanta Braves, Major League Baseball, and the city of New York to move ahead. I think we would all like that. From here forward, I will discuss nothing but baseball. At about 6:55, 5 minutes prior to the national anthem, public address announcer made an announcement to the fans that John Rocker did indeed meet with the media earlier, and they then played Rocker's entire press conference, his entire statement on the Diamond Vision board. And the crowd became silent. They listened for 3 or 4 minutes and then booed when it was all over and done with.
Well, that's what we expected. I had to laugh the way he opened it up and say, I am happy to be back in New York, believe it or not.
Take the number 7 subway as he said he would in an interview a couple of weeks ago.
I didn't think Major League Baseball allowed him to do that. His team, Major League Baseball, the Players Association, they all agreed he shouldn't do that.
Perhaps you will tomorrow.
Well, maybe this will calm down. I know that it's become a big story, obviously, and he's sorry. I'm not so sure he's sorry for what he said, but that he said it. You know, John Rocker is not stupid. He just said some dumb things. He's very articulate at times when you hear him interview. But unfortunately, he got carried away. You know, he's a very emotional pitcher.
Robin Ventura, who did not start the last 2 games due to a sore right shoulder, goes down on strike. So Greg Maddux Replacement John Burkett has retired the first 5 Mets.
Well, Robin's right shoulder is hurting him. He looked a little slow on this swing. That ball is out away from him. I've seen Robin. I had him when I was managing the White Sox with me, and his front shoulder, when it bothers him in the throwing, will also affect his hitting. His hands get slow. And I watched him, as you see, the first pitch to Todd Zeile. I watched him before the game throwing. He really struggled to throw when he was warming up. He had shoulder surgery in the offseason.
1-1 on Todd Zeile. There's Ventura, who pinch hit last night. He walked and then was pinch run for by starting pitcher Mike Hampton in the Mets' 6-5 victory over the Marlins. Zeile had a 13-game hitting streak, which came to an end on Sunday. He's batting right at 300. And he works the count to 3-1.
We talked about Todd Zeile and John Olerud. Of course, John Olerud, the left-handed hitter that gave balance to this Mets lineup, but also a Gold Glove type first baseman. Zeile has taken to first base very well. And by looking at his numbers as he fouls the ball off to the right, he is swinging the bat very well. He's always been a good hitter. He came up with the Cardinal organization as a catcher. Joe Torre switched him to third base. Now, Joe, too, in his career had been a catcher, moved to third base. Johnny Bench, a great, probably, if not the greatest, one of the greatest catchers ever, moved to third base later in his career. But Zeile moved to third and has been an infielder ever since. He's moved over to first base and taken to it very well.
The payoff pitch from Burkett. Zeile fouls it back. Zeile and Burkett teammates last year with the Texas Rangers.
You know, Zeile is so dangerous. He stands with a very quiet stance. His hands are kind of in front of him. He stands straight upright. He doesn't get crouched in the box and get his hands way back, but he is very dangerous. Very interesting stance. Not a lot of movement. Scouts have said for years that some hitters, they call it, would be a very quiet stance or quiet hands. He's real quiet with his hands.
Ball 4, so the Mets have their first base runner of the game. A 2-out walk to Zeile here in the second.
Well, the man stepping into the plate now, Jay Payton, is the kid I first saw playing at Georgia Tech when I was involved in the College World Series final between Georgia Tech and Oklahoma. This guy was some player. He has hit 300 or better in almost every minor league stop he's made. The problems he's had have been injuries. He had problems with his shoulder, with his elbow. When he's healthy, he is an excellent hitter. He likes the fastball up in the zone.
Payton working on a 9-game hitting streak. Has the average up to 301.
If this kid stays healthy, you can see he's got good power straight away, and that's a good sign. That means he stays on the ball. Likes the ball up and also down in the middle of the plate, meaning he likes the ball up and out, over and down the middle. And as I mentioned, a good fastball hitter.
Payton into right. Brian Jordan is under it. Tosses the ball up into the crowd, and that does it for the Mets in the second. They trail the Braves 1-0. Baseball Thursday on Fox Sports Net is brought to you by Toyota. Toyota, making it happen every day. Kenny Albert, Jeff Torborg, back at Shea Stadium. This fan obviously making reference to one of John Rocker's comments about New Yorkers with purple hair. Now we're analyzing the fans.
I'll tell you, they have some fans that come up with some unbelievable ideas around here. They started out many years ago, if you remember, the Amazing Mets with all those cards. There was a doctor here that used to hold up the cards that were really clever.
Well, the fans have had about 6 months to think about it and prepare.
Well, you're not kidding. Strange, isn't it? Last year, the same thing happened. The Braves and the Mets did not meet until, I believe, the 26th of June last year. Braves
won the season series last year 9-3. This their first meeting with the Mets. They've already finished with the Phillies. They played 13 games with the Phillies already. John Burkett falls behind 1-2. Burkett only 1 for 17 this season at the plate. It'll be Olivares on deck, then Andruw Jones. Burkett gets the bat on it. Fouls this one off into the second row down the right field line. So the count remains 1-2.
Kenny, that's what the big complaint in baseball is about this scheduling. And Bud Selig, the commissioner, is very adamant about it, that he wants the unbalanced schedule where you play more teams in your own division. Can you imagine the Phillies in the Eastern Division are finished with the Braves?
Burkett goes down on strikes. First strikeout of the game for Rick Reed.
Second baseman, number 4, Kilvio.
This week on Fox Saturday Baseball, same two teams. Some of you will see the Mets and the Braves, plus other regional action. Red Sox take on the White Sox. Check local listings for the game and time in your area on Fox. Dodgers, Giants, Reds, and Diamondbacks. John Burkett, who just struck out, was scheduled to start Saturday's game against Al Leiter, who's 9-1 for the Mets this year. Kevin Millwood, the scheduled starter tomorrow for the Braves. You wonder if Maddox is okay when he wakes up tomorrow, if he would pitch tomorrow's game, or if they would go with Millwood, who is scheduled to start. Maddox perhaps will take Burkett's scheduled start on Saturday.
No, you can handle it any way you want to as a manager and a pitching coach, depending on how the particular pitcher feels. I mean, if Maddox still is a little weakened tomorrow, why push it? By the same token, if he could go tomorrow, give Millwood an extra day, that might help him.
Backhanded by Alfonso. He throws out Veras for the second out. So with 2 away, Andruw Jones will step to the plate. Jones with 21 home runs this season. As we take a look at our Top Flight XL 2000 home run leaderboard, Andruw, the 5th youngest major leaguer of all time to reach 100 career home runs. 23 years, 62 days.
You know what's amazing about this kid? He's just really learning how to hit. He's just doing it on sheer athleticism. What's he going to be 10 years from now if he stays healthy? He'll have unbelievable numbers. He's just getting better and better. He already plays center field like almost like Willie Mays. You know, I've heard Bobby Cox say that maybe as a center fielder he's the best he's ever seen. Well, of course, Willie Mays the best I've ever seen. But he's got his own style. You know, that way he catches the ball, the way Willie Mays had the basket catch. This kid is just natural.
Hits this one back off Reed. It will be an infield hit. So a 2-out single for Andruw Jones. As we take you to this Fox Sportsnet game break, Giants and the Rockies at Coors Field, tied at 3, bottom of the 5th inning, 2 on. Jeff Cirillo doubles down the right field line off Joe Nathan. Armando Rios boots it in right, 2-run score. And the Rockies go on to win the game by the score of 11-4. Cirillo has driven in 9 runs in his last 2 games. Barry Bonds hit his 28th homer of the year for the Giants. Andruw Jones, the runner on first. Chipper Jones at the plate. Chipper walked in the first inning. Came around to score on Galarraga's triple. Crowd again picking up with their taunts of Larry. Larry. Ned Yost, third base coach, giving the signs. Chipper to deep right field. It's off the wall. The relay from Bell. Andruw Jones holds at third. And the Braves have runners on the corners with 2 out.
Kenny, this is a bullet. Chipper Jones gets into this. You can see his stance and the way he cocks a bat. He really hooks this ball. He gets the head of the bat out early. When he first hit it, he thought this thing was out. see Derek Bell, anything hit over your head that hard is the toughest play for an outfielder, but he does a nice job. Take a look at this angle. Chipper, when he first hits it, thinks it's out. And Derek Bell, look at the play that he makes on it. You see Chipper Jones was just kind of taking his time going down the bases there, but it was hit so hard anyway that if it were not played properly and got by him, Chipper could have strolled into second base. Well, that was a nice play by Derek Bell, the way he held that ball off that wall. He didn't go too deep and let it get by him.
There's Andrew Jones on third. Chipper on at first. Andres Galarraga at the plate. Picked up his 2,000th career hit back in the first inning with his RBI triple. Swings at the first pitch. Hits this one to deep right field. Bell looks back. This one is out of here. 3-run home run for Andres Galarraga. He has 4 RBIs tonight in the first 3 innings, and the Braves now lead the Mets 4-0. Home run number 19 for Galarraga.
This guy gets hot, boy. He can really drive the ball to all parts of the ballpark. Let's take a look at his swing. Talk to you about he dives back to the plate. Watch him go into the plate. This ball is up and away. Watch his eyes. Now see, he's right on this ball. He closes up and he gets that ball out away from him. He knows he got it. The minute he hit that ball, he knew he got it. Hit off the base of the scoreboard. That is a bomb for a right-handed hitter.
Jordan takes strike one. Galarraga's 19th of the year, his second home run off Rick Reed in his career. Galarraga with an RBI triple and a 3-run homer in his first 2 at-bats here tonight.
Well, that pitch, you remember we said right in the beginning with the scouting report, Rick Reed's got a pitch down. That pitch was up and he got hurt.
Now 1-2 on Jordan. Reed had retired the first 2 Braves here in the third. He struck out Burkett. Barris grounded out to second. Andrew Jones then hit a shot up the middle. It's deflected off Reed for an infield single. Chipper Jones then singled to right. 2-2.
You just wonder, sometimes as a manager, you worry about a ball hit back to the middle real hard, as Andrew Jones had done it. Even if he doesn't hurt the guy badly, it puts a thought in his mind that he might be a little jumpy, and then he kind of throws the ball and looks up quicker and doesn't locate well. Remember, you only start out 60 feet 6 inches away on that slab, and then when you stride into the plate, as you're looking at Dave Wallace, you're much closer. And then if a ball comes rocketing through the middle, that puts a thought in your mind. I better be ready for this next one. So what do? You get ready a little too early without finishing off the pitch.
Reed struggled in the early innings on Saturday against the Pirates. He allowed 8 hits the first 2 innings. He's allowed 4 runs on 4 hits. The first 2 2/3 here tonight.
Well, he's quite a bit up there in pitch count, too. Walked 2 guys in the first inning. That's not like him.
There's Alfonso over to Zeal. So Brian Jordan bounces out to second for the second time tonight. But the Braves score 3 runs thanks to the 2-out, 3-run homer off the bat of the Big Cat. Andres Galarraga, 4-0 Atlanta. John Rocker in the Braves bullpen, take our word for it, behind the security guard. What does Mets third baseman Robin Ventura feel about Rocker's return?
It's kind of getting tiresome to talk about, but I think everybody, it's one of those things that people want to see what happens. I think that's just, you know, first and foremost. You're tired of talking about it, but, you know, now that he's coming in, I think everybody just kind of sees what's going to happen.
You know, it's very interesting to think about as Agbayani steps into the box. The players are not that into it, as is the media and the fans. The players know it's another game, and again, it's going to be a great rivalry. But there is a certain interest to see what the reaction will be from them.
Eddie Agbayani falls behind 0-2. Some of the photographers on hand tonight. Now 1-2 on Agbayani.
When I was coming into the ballpark, I saw a guy carrying a big camera, but he also had a hard hat. And I don't know where he is. I don't see him out there. But
he's prepared, wherever he may be. Now
2 balls, 2 strikes. Jeff, you and I got to the ballpark about 3:15, and there were probably about 100 fans outside the press gate. As many police officers, as many members of the media. Agbayani goes down on strike. Second strikeout for John Burkett. In fact, here in the press box, as we take a look at one of these security guards stationed next to the souvenir stand here at Shea.
Here's an excellent pitch. This is a changeup. The bottom fell out of that. See Burkett throw this thing. You can see the lack of rotation. That's a changeup, almost has a screwball action. And Benny swung right over the top of that. There's John Rocker.
Rick Reed, ground ball to the shortstop. Weiss from behind second. He throws him out. 2 away, and Reed's hurt. Reed comes up limping. Just shy of first base.
The shortstop. Kenny, we talked about it before. Rick Reed has had problems with his legs and also some sort of problems with his fingers at times. You know, he's a finesse pitcher. But he's pulled up before running the bases. Nobody seems to be paying much attention to him.
This was prior to Reed's at bat. He was upset at himself for the pitch to Galarraga.
I think I've seen Reed before have it kind of go when he's running. He kind of jams his knee or his hip, and it takes a little while, and then he's okay. And remember, you pitch with your legs too. Have to watch him closely. I know the Mets will be. Fred Hina, one of the trainers, looking and talking to him.
On Melvin Mora. Burkett doing his best impersonation of Greg Maddux over his first 3 innings.
Not kidding. He came into this inning with only 33 pitches. In contrast, after the last inning, Reed was up to 63, which is an awful lot, and Burkett's throwing strikes.
Missing on that pitch, 2-2 on Mora. Mets have had only 1 base runner, Zeal, a 2-out walk in the second. Reed and the Mets behind 4-0. And the count is now full. 3 balls, 2 strikes, 2 outs, bottom of the 3rd inning. With the Braves leading the Mets 4-0. Here's the shortstop, Weiss. Safe.
This was a tough play on Walt Weiss. He had to charge the ball. Remember, Mora can run. Weiss comes in and makes a great play on the ball with his glove, but he does not make the exchange to his bare hand well. It pops out. Watch this play. See how it pops out of the glove, and Walt makes it very close. This is a great play. Woo, I don't know about that call. Let him up here. Watch this again. Now, look at the arm strength. Throwing off on the dead run off the wrong foot.
Of the season charged to Weiss. So the Mets have a 2-out base runner.
No, they're not looking at his legs now. They're looking at his hands. That's Rick Reed.
You saw him push over that water cooler.
Oh, yeah, exactly. If you bruise up in the... Now, he's looking at his left hand. He can get away with that. Sudden they felt a little tenderness. Guys, I've seen guys break hands doing that. Guys hitting water coolers, pushing the bats into the bat rack. But he went after this water cooler. Watch this shot. It's a double straight arm.
Now 2-1 on Derek Bell, who fouled out to the third baseman Chipper Jones back in the first inning. 4-0 Braves. Andres Galarraga has driven in all 4 runs. An RBI triple in the first, a 3-run homer in the third. Moore, the runner on first.
And would they run here? Yes, they would run here. First of all, Burkett is a little bit slow to the plate. And Bobby Valentine's an aggressive manager. Even though he's in this part of the lineup, with Alfonso on deck and in the hole would be Piazza. Bobby will try to stir his ball club up at times, and the crowd. He'd like to get the crowd back into it.
Three balls, 1 strike.
Well, you can see Bobby giving his signs. If you had a guy who didn't strike out much. Now, Derek Bell strikes out a lot. Cookie Rojas, the third base coach, giving the signs. Moore, the first base runner, up top right, looked back at Mookie Wilson, the first base coach, to see if anything was on.
3-1. He walks him. Second walk issued by Burkett. And the Mets have runners on first and second with 2 outs, and Edgardo Alfonzo stepping in.
How often do you see it happen? Here's a pitcher moving along, making his pitches, getting him to hit the ball, and then you give a major league club an extra out in the inning, and it could turn deadly. Now, the play Walt Weiss had it short that he was given an error on was a very difficult play. Even if he comes up cleanly with that ball, it's going to be a pretty close play at first base. But that was followed by a walk, and now you're in the meat of the Mets order. And this guy is dangerous. Alfonso.
Edgardo takes a called strike. He's 6th in the National League with runners in scoring position, batting .352. There's Moore on second. Bell, the runner on first. Mets trailing the Braves by 2 in the standings, by 4-0 tonight. To the screen. 0-2.
Take a look at the hot zone of Edgardo Alfonso. You're talking about a very good hitter. He loves the ball from the middle of the plate inward. That's where he gets his hands through. Now, he's selective enough to take the ball out here until 2 strikes. But he can hit those pitches, and he can hit them to right field. See a hitter who has an open stance, meaning his front foot is a little bit closer as a right-hand hitter to third base than it is to the plate. If he doesn't close up, you can pitch outside all you want, but if he does close up, you have to be careful on the outside part of the plate.
Now 1-2 on Alfonso.
The great part about these hot zones, the Major League ball clubs have this same type of grouping of where a hitter is hot, and it's the best way to teach your pitcher. You're not planting negative seeds in his mind. You're saying, okay, see the blue zone? Pitch out there, or pitch in there.
Pop foul. Back behind first base. That's with runners on first and second. 2 outs, bottom of the third inning, trailing the Braves 4-0. Pat Mahomes up in the Mets bullpen.
We just saw that last pitch. John Burkett was up in the zone, and Alfonso just fouled it back. I would venture to say that Burkett and Lopez will probably try to go down and away and make him chase a breaking ball down and away. Remember what we saw in the hot zone, that area low and away. Now, every hitter that ever lived, you can pitch him up and in and low and away if you get the ball way in and down and away.
Off-speed pitch, slow roller to the shortstop, Weiss. Safe.
talked about the Mets being resilient. I mean, this is kind of a typical inning for them. They do the little things. Now, their team speed has caused this to happen. What they have in team speed, they have in Mora and the guys on the bases right now. And who do they have up but the guy they want up in this situation, Mike Piazza, who he's in the midst of a big hitting streak, Kenny, but you know what he is? He is so darn dangerous. If you make a mistake, he is a triple hitter. He is so strong. He can take a ball in the middle of the plate and hit it over the bleachers.
Piazza takes ball one. An infield hit for Alfonso, so White's not charged with an error on the Alfonso grounder. Bases loaded. Moore on at third. Bell at second. Alfonso on at first. Piazza into left center. One-run scores. Here comes Bell. A two-out, two-run single off the bat of Mike Piazza. Here at the bottom of the third inning. And the Mets cut the Braves lead in half. A 17-game hitting streak for Piazza. His RBI streak now at a club record 12 consecutive games.
Well, we talked about Mike Piazza as the man they wanted to hit in this position. He's a big, strong dude, and this ball is right in the heart of the plate, and he doesn't miss it. He hits a bullet to left center. Look at his head down his arms. This is exactly what Bobby Cox does not want. He does not want these fans to get back. You can see Bobby shake his head. He doesn't want these fans back in this. Obviously not the Mets either.
Robin Ventura swings at the first pitch. Towering pop-up. Three Braves converge in foul territory, and Chipper Jones drops it. You think the fans are back in it?
Oh. Kenny, above this din here, I have seen it happen so many times before after you thought you had a guy out. They were playing it the right way. Burkett was over directing traffic. Now is when the hitter very often responds.
Another opportunity for Ventura. He takes ball one. Burkett thought he was out of the inning. He struck out Agbayani. Reed grounded out to short. Mora reached on the Weiss error, a two-out error. Burkett walked Bell. Alfonso, the infield single. He beat the throw from Weiss. Piazza, a two-run single. And Ventura stays alive as Chipper Jones drops what would have been really the fourth out of the inning.
It really could have been. You're not kidding if you look at it that way. Or maybe the fifth, for that matter.
Ninth error of the season charged to Chipper Jones. Ventura called out on strikes. Third strikeout for Burkett. But the Mets score two on two hits, a walk, and an error. 4-2 Atlanta.
It's time for Who Wants to Play.
Welcome back to Fox Sports Net Baseball Thursday from Shea Stadium as we move to the fourth. Braves over the Mets by a 4-2 score. Rick Reed's night is over. He will be replaced by 29-year-old right-hander Pat Mahomes. Here is Reed exiting the Mets dugout. So Pat Mahomes will pitch in relief of Rick Reed as we send it down to Steve Lyons. Steve?
Hi, guys. I'm sitting here with a Met fan who's clearly not normal, but, you know, you've got signs and everything. You've got signs that, you know, against Rocker and everything, but if he comes into this game, how are you going to react?
I'm just going to hope that we're in a position where we can win this game. We're here for baseball, that's all. I'm not an anti-Rocker person. I don't like his comments, and I don't approve of everything he said, and I think that little fake apology before the game was kind of mute.
You didn't think that was sincere?
I don't think anything that he reads is sincere. I'm impressed that he was able to read, though. I'm surprised he had enough intelligence to read a statement.
Now, are you hoping that the rest of the Met fans here will react with as much class as you say you're going to react with?
Oh, Mets fans have a lot of class. We know how to ride the number 7 train. It's a classy train, even. John Rocker picked on the wrong line. They have no problems on that line. He should have taken a look at some of the trains somewhere else around the country. Mets fans have a lot of class. We'll show him total dignity. We don't have a problem with that.
All right, love the hair. Guys, will send it back to you.
Thanks, Steve. Boy, you picked a good one. That guy is a comedian. Boy, that was clever, some of the stuff he said. I thought the response of the fans to the red apology would have that kind of response, but it's an interesting situation with the Mets pitching at this particular point. Pat Mahomes has come into the game. The big right-hander who went 8-0 last year is taking his warm-ups on the mound.
As John Rocker continues to make friends with the security, the police officers here in New York. Coming up immediately following the Mets and the Braves, the National Sports Report. The Yankees made a deal. No, they did not acquire Sammy Sosa, but they did acquire David Justice in exchange for Ricky Leday. Post-game coverage from Shea Agassi on the ropes at Wimbledon. It's all coming up after the game on the National Sports Report. Pat Mahomes, who has made 3 spot starts for the Mets this year, comes in with a record of 2-1, 4.32 ERA. So for the second straight start, Rick Reed does not make it into the 4th inning.
I don't know quite what he did. I saw him go down as he went to leave the dugout. He had a difficult time even walking down the steps, not to mention they were examining his wrists. But Pat Mahomes, who really did a terrific job last year for Bobby Valentine, he appeared 39 times when he was 8-0, and he was outstanding in the postseason. He's a terrific athlete. He's 6'4". He was runner-up to the Texas High School Player of the Year in basketball one year.
Bobby Bonilla drills this one foul down the right field line. So the count now 1-1. Bonilla single to right, leading off the second inning for the Braves.
I watched Bobby Bonilla earlier this season. He was swinging the bat as well as I've seen him swing it over the last couple of years.
Bonilla into right. Derek Bell backpedaling, makes the catch for the first out.
And I think one of the reasons was he's healthy. You know, he had been really banged up for a couple years after ankle surgery, wrist surgery. And it's very difficult to play this game unless you're close to 100% physically.
How about Bobby Bonilla's contract with the Mets starting in the year 2011? He will receive $1 million per year for 25 years.
Well, I was here when he signed the original contract, but I didn't have anything to do with the figure. But the fans really let him know it that year when he wasn't, you know, the godsend they thought he was.
Javi Lopez into shallow center. Alfonso backpedaling, makes the catch. 2 away.
You know, as you look at this Braves team with Javi Lopez back and Andres Galarraga back, they've got a much better offensive team than they had last year. And they went out in the offseason to try to add speed to the team. And they've been able to do that. But surprisingly enough, as you look at Galarraga, who is one of the game's gentlemen, it's wonderful to see the kind of year he's had coming back from cancer. He found that cancer in his spine.
How apropos that with all the hoopla surrounding John Rocker, it's Andres Galarraga, who is sure to win baseball's Comeback Player of the Year award, who has driven in the first 4 Braves runs tonight.
It really is. It's a tremendous story. And this Braves team has a lot of character. They've got a lot of good players, and they keep adding and retooling each year. And this club has lost John Smoltz, one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball over the last few years. That's Wally Joyner came over in a trade. He is the backup for Andres Galarraga. He was the insurance policy. Nobody knew what Galarraga was going to do this season.
Walt Weiss, base hit left field. 6th hit of the game for the Braves, a 2-out single here in the 4th. Time now for a Fox Sportsnet game break. We take you to Comerica Park in Detroit. Tigers hosting the Yankees. No score, top of the 4th inning. Yankees 0-5 in Detroit this year. Dave Malicki on the mound. Bernie Williams triples to deep center, driving in Paul O'Neill. Tino Martinez then drove in Williams with a sac fly. So the Yankees, looking for their first win in the new ballpark after 5 consecutive losses, lead the Tigers 2-0. We mentioned Dave Malicki, the former Met, who beat the Yankees the first time they ever played in the regular season back in '97. In this series against the Yankees, the Tigers starting 3 ex-Mets, Hideo Nomo, Dave Malicki, and Willie Blair. 3 former New York Mets all starting against the New York Yankees.
That's interesting. I didn't realize. I had forgotten that Willie Blair was here for a while.
Well, not too long.
Yeah, I remember that part.
0-2 on Burkett. The Yankees, as we mentioned, made a deal earlier today. Yes, they traded Ricky Leday. No, they did not acquire Sammy Sosa, but former Brave David Justice. Burkett pops this one up behind the plate. Will there be room for Piazza? No. It lands on top of the screen, so the count remains 0-2.
I think that's one of those deals that's probably very good for both clubs, because David Justice is a professional hitter. If he's healthy in Yankee Stadium, he can really do some damage. He can hit left-handers. You know, as a left-handed hitter, he hits the mistake pitches, and he could be a big bat that balances their lineup as well. And Ricky Leday will get a chance to play every day with the Indians.
Remember, at one point, Justice was just about as unpopular in New York, particularly at Yankee Stadium, as Chipper Jones is now. Yankee Stadium fans had a field day coming up with chants regarding his personal life at the time.
Well, you remember also that he really berated the Atlanta fans when they went back for the 1995 World Series against Cleveland. And of course, he backed up his words. He had a home run off of Jim Poole to win that World Series for the Braves, but he really got all over the fans, saying that they were not supportive, they were front runners and so on. Of course, John Rocker didn't say that to the home fans. He said that to the New York fans, but I don't know where you go from there.
Burkett up the middle. Mora steps on second, just beats Weiss. So we head to the bottom of the 4th from Shea. 4-2 Braves. John Rocker enjoying a snack in the Braves bullpen. The life and times of John Rocker over the last 3 months. His return to Atlanta, spring training, early April. His first road trip, San Diego, late April. Listen to the crowd. A visit to Los Angeles and Dodger Stadium. And finally, Philadelphia. This the upper deck overlooking the Braves bullpen, the mezzanine. Mets and the city of New York not taking any chances.
No, that's understandable too. That ball that Javi Lopez just dropped, if he caught that, well, they did call it a strike. I was going to say, very often when a catcher drops a ball that's close on a corner, as you see all the security here, the catcher will not get the call. But they gave him that one. But you know, it has to be secure here at this ballpark after all the talk around the country for so long. They can't take any chances.
Now 1-2 on Zeal. How about the controversy surrounding the Braves catcher's box this past weekend?
A long talk before the game with Don Sutton about that. That was very interesting with the size of the catcher's box.
It's supposed to be 43 inches,
as Zeal flies out to Jordan in right. We'll get back to the catcher's box, but first, this date in baseball history, 59 years ago today, brought to you by American General with hits in both games of a twin bill. Joe DiMaggio tied and then broke the American League record, hitting in his 42nd consecutive game. He would go on to hit in 56 straight, still the Major League record.
You remember who hit, not in the Major Leagues, but in college in 58 straight? Robin Ventura of these very Mets.
Oh, a terrific catch by Galarraga, but he dropped it. Looked as if he made the catch. Rolled on the ground, so Payton will head back to the plate.
You're not kidding. This was a heck of an effort. He got the nickname the Big Cat because he is agile for a great big guy. Look at this. Well, actually, it was a short hop, even if he had come up with it. But that is a heck of an effort, folks. That's a big guy.
He's driven in all 4 Braves runs tonight. A first-inning triple, a 3-run homer in the 3rd. I started to mention earlier, press box here at Shea, there are usually 20, 25, perhaps 30 print reporters from newspapers, magazines in the New York area, plus the out-of-town reporters. We're not counting the radio and television people who are here. Tonight, there are seating charts. Usually some of the writers can pretty much sit where they want. All of the local writers will always sit in their same seats, creatures of habit, but there are seating charts up tonight indicating where the hundreds of media members should sit in the press box. There are writers from many out-of-town cities: Baltimore, Washington, Chicago, Toronto, Los Angeles, right on down the line. Harris throws it away. Tough night in the field for the Braves.
Well, this ball got underneath his legs. He did not get out in front to catch this ball. Watch this. Here's the swing. And Payton runs well. See, it gets by. It's a chopper. But watch the ball kind of take a hop. Veras gets it back underneath his legs, and that's why he threw it away. He tried to rush. That ball stayed down. He thought that was going to bounce up a little bit. Bounced under his legs, and they called it a hit. I think you have to. Even though he threw the ball away, the runner would have been safe anyway. Payton would have been safe, and he did not advance a base.
So a 1-out infield single for Jay Payton, who extends his hitting streak to 10 games.
Well, the Braves saying, here we go again after that last inning. With a chopper in the infield for an error, a walk, and then another infield hit. And they get something going here with 1 out. Who was that masked man?
Was that Steve Lyons? Payton, the 1-out base runner. Manny Agbayani at the plate, struck out in the 3rd inning. Grounds to 3rd. Nice play by Jones. Throws to 2nd for 1. Over to 1st. And the Braves turn a 5-4-3 double play. 4 innings in the books from Shea. 4-2 Atlanta. Rocker wimps out. Johnny Rotten. 2 of the headlines of the New York tabloids earlier today. And we showed you the writers up in the press box. They, of course, do not write the headlines. Or at least that's what they told us.
They used to tell me here when they were criticizing the kind of managing they were getting in the early 90s.
You saw the signs for the number 7 train. I think the number 7 subway has received more publicity since Rocker's comments than any mode of transportation in the history of the United States of America.
Oh, boy.
Perhaps the Department of Transportation here in New York someday in the future will hire John Rocker as their spokesman.
Yeah, good chance of that. I bet the car will end up in the Hall of Fame, one of the cars in that train. You know, those guys sitting with him have a lot of guts. You know, at times I've been on ball clubs where there have been some threats on guys. And I always worried about sitting next to that teammate.
Well, Kerry Ligtenberg said earlier this week, you won't catch me standing anywhere near John Rocker.
Well, you know, you can joke about it, but years ago we had that happen with the Dodger ball club.
Mahomes strikes out Kilby O'Veris. First strikeout for Pat Mahomes.
The center fielder,
well, we've talked
25,
about the classic NLCS last October between the Mets and the Braves. This is Kenny Rogers in the 11th inning of Game 6, walking Andruw Jones with the bases loaded, enabling the Braves to move on to the World Series, where they were swept by another New York team, the Yankees.
Yeah, there was so much poured into that, so much energy. If you remember, the Braves were within 4 outs of sweeping that series. And the Mets, with a great resiliency that they showed all season long, just kept coming back, 2 extra inning games. That was a great series. I think the Braves were worn out by the time they got their World Series. That's not to take anything away from the Yankees at all. But it took so much emotion to get through that series.
The 1-1 to Andruw Jones, lifted into shallow center. And it drops in front of Payton for Andruw Jones' second hit of tonight's game.
The third baseman, number 10, Chipper Jones.
Yep, time now for our 7-Eleven trivia. Last season, Chipper Jones became the 3rd switch hitter in the 90s to win the National League MVP award. Who were the other 2?
I'm going to have to think about that. I know who one was.
Chipper has reached base twice tonight, a walk and a single to right. He scored 2 runs. Getting back to the NLCS, 5 of the 6 games were 1-run games. Riveting baseball. As you mentioned, the Braves were within 4 outs of sweeping the Mets. Mets came back to win Game 4. Game 5, a classic, the Robin Ventura grand slam, which turned into a long single when he was tackled by Todd Pratt while running the base paths. There goes Andruw Jones, and Chipper Jones fouls this one off down the right field line. 0-2. There's Todd Pratt, the Mets backup catcher.
Because he had that big home run against the Diamondbacks to win that series. Pratt was the reason that Robin Ventura ended up with a grand slam single. As he stopped running after he got to second base, he turned around and came back to hug Robin. Robin kept telling him, go ahead, keep going. And of course, it only counted for the 1 run.
Pratt hit a grand slam earlier this season. Ventura said after the game, I should have tackled him. Andruw Jones, the runner on first. Chipper Jones behind in the count, 0-2. Mahomes missing outside. 1 ball, 2 strikes.
Well, Andruw Jones was running on an 0-1 pitch. You see the big cat on deck. When you're in the middle of the order, a lot of times managers, especially if you have a left-handed hitter at the plate, you might not be running, but you can see the eyes of Andruw Jones trying to kind of sneak a peek in to see if he can see the pitches from Mike Piazza. The reason for that is if you can look in and you see kind of a wiggle sign instead of maybe one, you know it might be an off-speed pitch and it's a good pitch to run on. It's slower and it might be in the dirt. Maury Wills, the great Dodger shortstop whom I refer to many times in our telecast because he was, to me, the greatest. Used to get out there and squint so you couldn't see the white in his eyes, but you can see Andrew. See him kind of with that helmet pulled down, but he's looking in to see the signs. Maury Wills used to get out and say, I squint so that you can't see the whites of my eyes when I'm turning in to look in and get the signs. They would pitch out on Maury Wills, and he would just be looking at the signs and walk right back to first base. A good base runner can do that. Bobby Bonds was one of the best I ever saw doing that. Now, Andrew Jones made a fake break there. I don't like the fake break. You know, a lot of times people say, well, that fake break will get an infielder out of position. I think more often than not, when a runner fakes a break, the hitter can see it out of his peripheral vision, and it can foul him up.
Pitch out, now 2-2.
I think that what the Mets dugout did, and what you do when you're in the dugout as a manager and a coach, you're trying to get body read on the body language, and there's Bobby Valentine watching. And he had seen the fake break on the pitch before, and it could mean that he didn't get a good jump and he stopped. So they pitched out thinking he might be running. There are a lot of managers will not like to run when you have a left-handed hitter at the plate who's a pull hitter, and he might take the hole away at first.
Is now full. 3 balls, 2 strikes on Chipper Jones with 1 out. Andrew Jones, the runner on first.
But now when you get to this count, you got a right-handed hitter on deck. You're not worrying about that hole there. They might be running here.
There he goes. Ball 4, so the Braves have runners on first and second. Andres Galarraga, who has driven in all 4 Atlanta runs, coming to the plate.
This will be interesting to see how Mike Piazza decides to pitch Galarraga this time. Remember, it was a different pitcher the last time. It was Rick Reed, who wasn't throwing real well. And he got the ball up out over the plate, and Galarraga hit it off the base of the scoreboard in right center field. Now you got a pitcher throwing harder, and the book has always been to pitch Galarraga inside. It'll be interesting to see how the Mets try to pitch him in this sequence.
2 on, 1 out. 4-2 Braves. Called strike, 0-1.
We haven't talked much about it, but this is an excellent umpiring staff. Rocky Rowe behind the plate has been a good umpire for a long time. Got a good crew here.
0-2. Brian Ruggie, the first base umpire, and Ralph Guano working second, and John Shulak at third.
You start talking about the catcher's box before, that's the man who called the catcher's balk.
Mahomes strikes out. No, he got a piece of it. And Piazza caught it. Piazza caught the foul tip, but it looked to glance off his finger, and Andrew Jones takes third base.
You know what happened? He forgot the outs. He thought it was 3 outs. He was looking at the ball, walking off, happy to get the strikeout, and he was mistaken about the number of outs. That is embarrassing. And Pat Mahomes was trying to get over up toward home plate to get him to throw the ball. Here they got it right where they wanted it, up in the zone, and threw it right by him. He's out now. Piazza now starts walking off looking at the ball. Look at Mahomes. He's wondering where he's going.
You're right. I thought it glanced off Piazza's finger on the foul tip, but he started to walk away.
Yeah, you saw him looking down at the ball. Watch him. See, he's looking at the ball like that's what gave you the idea there was something wrong. But look at Mahomes. Mahomes saying, hey, wait a minute, wait a minute. You know, it's only 2 outs.
Wow.
Why is Chipper still at first base?
And you could read Mahomes' lips yelling, Mike, Mike.
situation is, you see Andrew Jones was heads up, he's at third base. Unless Chipper Jones wasn't sure that Andrew, who was in front of him, was running, so he couldn't get a good jump, and he was afraid to get down there to second base. But he should not be still sitting there.
Jones on third, Chipper over at first. Following Mahomes' strikeout of Galarraga on 3 pitches. After the Big Cat tripled in the first and a 3-run home run in the third. But Mike Piazza, thinking the strikeout was the third out, started to head back into the Mets dugout. Up the middle, base hit. Andrew Jones scores. The Braves extend their lead to 5-2. RBI number 46 for Brian Jordan. And the Piazza lapse in concentration leads to the Braves' 5th run.
Well, actually, he would have scored from second anyway. What I wonder is why Chipper Jones was not at second base. If he had been at second base, there might have been 2 runs in here in this situation.
Scorer Red Foley in the background. Andrew Jones not credited with a stolen base. Jones reached third on a fielder's choice. A poor choice.
Yeah, it was a strange play. You don't see that very often, especially not with a catcher, because the catcher is so in tune. Pitcher, number of outs, and he's looking right at the scoreboard.
2-1 on Bobby Bonilla, who's 1 for 2 tonight. 5th on the all-time list. Home runs by a switch hitter. He has 3 this year. 2-2.
Well, Bobby's had a big career. You know, he was the first to say when he came to the Mets ball club that he was not Barry Bonds. He could not carry a team. Even though the contract he got at the time was one that would indicate that that was the kind of player he was. But when Bobby's been healthy, he has put the numbers up. Probably got more power right-handed. First time I ever saw him face a knuckleball pitcher, he went up right-handed. I said, what are you doing? He said, I just feel more comfortable on the right side of the plate and I have bigger power.
Bonilla getting set for the 2-2 from Mahomes. Three balls, 2 strikes, 2 outs. 6-time All-Star. Ball 4. Second walk of the inning. Bases loaded.
Well, Dave Wallace, the outstanding pitching coach, is going to the mound. At the same time, we're getting a pinch runner for Bobby Bonilla. So the minds are working in both dugouts. This is a big game in a big series. It's not the John Rocker series. It is an outstanding series between 2 very good teams.
Trinidad Hubbard, the pinch runner for Bonilla. So the bases are full of Braves. Chipper Jones on at third. Brian Jordan, the runner, on second. And the pinch runner Hubbard on at first. 2 walks in the inning. As Javi Lopez steps in. Lopez has a grand slam this year. He's 4 for 10 with the bases full.
He is really strong, Kenny. This guy is a good hitter.
Swings at the first pitch, pops it up. Second baseman Alfonso is under it and makes the catch.
to retire the side. But the Braves score a run on 2 hits, and they now lead the Mets 5-2.
Airplane.
Braves and Mets playing the first of 13 games this season against one another. Here's Atlanta manager Bobby Cox.
The Mets series will be a big series, and it'll be standing room only, and that's the fun part. You know, you preach that to your players in spring training about being in a pennant race and those types of games, and that's what baseball is all about, being able to be in those type of games. So it'll be fun.
There's a reason why Bobby Cox is such an outstanding manager and led his team to so many postseason victories. Part of it is because they enjoy it. They like the pressure. They like to be there. You can see how this race has been going. Braves are up by 7 on the first of this month.
Braves have gone 12-14 since then. If they do not win tonight and tomorrow, it would become their first losing month since September of '96. Trinidad Hubbard, who ran for Bobby Bonilla, remains in the game in left field for the Braves. 2-2 on Mets pitcher Pat Mahomes. And the count is now full. Mahomes 2 hits in 10 at-bats this year. Works the count full, leading off the Mets' 5th. Weiss has had his problems tonight. And the throw just beats Mahomes. Good hustle by the Mets pitcher. 1 away in the bottom of the 5th inning. As we take you back to our 7-11 trivia. Last season, Larry Chipper Jones became the 3rd switch hitter this decade, or I should say the decade of the 90s, to win the National League MVP award. Who were the other 2?
Well, I know who one of them was, Terry Pendleton in '91. Yeah, he's the one that broke up what would have been 4 straight for Barry Bonds and Ken Caminiti in '96 with the Padres. He's the one I forgot.
Melvin Mora takes a called strike from John Burkett, who found out earlier today that he would start tonight's game with Greg Maddux under the weather.
You can see a little of the type of sequences that Burkett is using. He's getting ahead of most of the hitters, and then he tries to work the outside part of the plate. He's throwing a lot of pitches now because even with the pitcher, Mahomes, he got into a 3-2 count. But the key is getting ahead. You get ahead, that's a pretty good philosophy. Any youngster listening, I should say, out there, and that's a way to pitch and be successful.
Mora into left, and the catch is made by Hubbard for the 2nd out.
Now you can see what Bobby Cox was doing when he pinch ran for Bobby Bonilla. Yes, he was trying to get more speed on the bases at the time, but he was also putting his better defensive outfielder out there. Bobby is a heck of a manager. Bobby Cox does not get the credit that he deserves. So much has been said about the Braves only winning the 1 World Series in the 90s, but to get there, this guy has been terrific. He was an outstanding general manager before that. He's the guy to put this club together initially.
Derek Bell 0-4 with a walk. Walked and scored back in the 3rd inning. Gentleman who was hit in the 1st row flashes the thumbs up sign. He's okay.
Either that or he broke it. Yes. Boy, that was a bullet in there.
He's moving it pretty well. Missed all those drinks on top of the dugout. How about that? Thumbs up for Derek Bell. A 2-out single to left. Jeff, Saturday, it's This Week in Baseball as Red Sox All-Star shortstop Nomar Garciaparra talks about the storied history of Fenway Park. Catch This Week in Baseball Saturdays on Fox, 12:30 Eastern and Pacific. You can catch it again right here on Fox Sportsnet Mondays at 5:30. Check local listings. Red Sox in a bit of a swoon.
They've lost 5 in a row, 8 of 10. And they trail the Blue Jays by 4 full games in the AL East. Toronto 12-3 over Tampa Bay. Earlier today, Yankees lead Detroit 8-0 in the 5th. Yankees 3.5 behind the Blue Jays. While the Red Sox have lost 8 of 10. Yankees have lost 7 of 10. Toronto has won 8 of their last 10. David Wells, 13-game winner.
Who would have ever imagined that the pennant race that everyone thought would be probably locked up and nowhere near what it is the Central Division of the American League, where the White Sox are ruling now. Indians that far behind, 8 games behind, and also the Central Division in the National League, where the Cardinals up by so much.
8.5 game lead over the Reds. Cardinals clobbered the Reds today, 12-3 in Cincinnati. Alfonso takes ball 2. Edgardo, an infield hit his last time up. Derek Bell, the runner on first, 2 outs. In the bottom of the 5th inning, Braves leading the Mets 5-2.
Kenny, I can tell you what they're thinking in the Braves dugout. Get Alfonso out if you can. We don't want Piazza coming up to make up for that mental mistake. The good ones are able to do that. They step up and make the big thing happen. And there he is on deck, and it counts 3-0. You can see these things develop. You sit in the dugout and your manager, first of all, your stomach's rolling the whole game anyway. But the way Abner designed this game, it seems like the great hitters are always up when the game's on the line.
Ball strike, 3-1.
Every time when I was a player with the Dodgers, we played the Giants, Willie Mays hit the 9th inning. It never failed.
Alfonso to deep center. Andrew Jones pulls it in. So the Mets strand a base runner in the 5th. They trail the Braves by 3. Braves as we head to the 6th. Let's check in again with Steve Lyons.
You know, John Rocker's already proved that he's not afraid to be on the field. He was out there for batting practice, but if he doesn't want to go out on the field during the game, he doesn't have to. This is the Braves locker room door. He can come out this way, go straight down this hall, all the way down. It'll take him about 5 minutes to walk the length of the hallway down here, where they have a special entrance into the bullpen. Now, the bullpen, as you can see, has been covered. They've got a brand new canopy up so that the fans can't throw things down into the bullpen. They can't even see the players sitting there while they're waiting to get into the game. So if John Rocker gets into the game, he'll leave a seat, probably this one right here, and come underneath this canopy where nobody can see him so that the fans can't mess with him. Come over here to warm up. They've also put this up here, too, another canopy where the fans above him can't throw anything at him, yell at him, and scream at him. Even if they do, he's not going to be able to hear you. Jeff and Kenny, back to you guys.
Thanks very much, Steve. That obviously taped prior to the game. And John Rocker has spent the first 5 innings out in the Braves bullpen area. There was some thought as Weiss knocks this one into the right field corner. It's a fair ball. Extra bases for Walt Weiss. Derek Bell has some trouble with it in right field. Weiss on his way to 3rd. And he is in there.
So I mentioned earlier that Walt Weiss isn't a power hitter, but from the left side of the plate, he's a switch hitter, but from the left side of the plate, he hits a lot of balls right down the right field line, which he did here. Here's his swing. He doesn't try to slap the ball around as much. You can see he hits that ball down and then hits it right down the right field line. It took a kind of a right turn and then bounces past Derek Bell, and Walt Weiss ends up at 3rd base.
His 2nd triple of the season. 2nd triple of the game for the Braves. Infield in with the pitcher Burkett at the plate. As I was saying, some people felt Rocker would spend the first 6 or 7 innings in the Braves clubhouse, but he's been out in the bullpen since the start.
Well, he's not afraid. I mean, he's a big, tough guy. He's a young kid who's strong as an ox, prides himself on his being macho, but he's not afraid. That bullpen there, many years ago, I told you got hit down here in the lower portion of this field as you're seeing the pitches to Burkett with the infield in and a runner at third. But that bullpen was a target in those days of everything. Last year he got hit with a veer. There was like a mesh screen over the top of the mound, but anything liquid could get through it. He got hit with everything last year.
As Rocker has pointed out on many occasions, he did not allow an earned run in the playoffs here at Shea, in the World Series at Yankee Stadium. In fact, he pitched in all 6 games of the NLCS against the Mets and did not allow an earned run.
He was awesome. He really was. He came in, he got out of things in the 8th inning, 9th inning. He was outstanding.
The count now full, 3 balls, 2 strikes to the opposing pitcher, John Burkett. Burkett 0 for 2 tonight. Walt Weiss on third, nobody out. In the top of the 6th inning, Pat Mahomes in relief of Rick Reed. Reed left after 3 innings with a sprained left calf.
You can look at the Mets defense right now. You don't have to play right up on the grass when you have a pitcher hitting in this situation, also with none out. You can play what you call halfway, and that's what Moore is doing at shortstop. He's back a little bit.
Mahomes walks the opposing pitcher, Burkett. 3rd walk issued by Pat Mahomes. The Braves have runners on the corners with nobody out.
The newest addition to this ball club, Eric Kamak, is in. He had just joined this ball club. Rich Rodriguez was asked, even though he didn't have to go down, agreed to go down like Bobby Jones did to the minor leagues and get his mechanics straightened out.
Julio Veras bounces this one foul. Rodriguez, the 2nd member of the Mets pitching staff to accept an assignment to AAA to try and work things out. Bobby Jones had gone down to Norfolk a couple of weeks back.
That shows you something about the mentality of the players. They're trying to help this team. They didn't have to go down. The way seniority they have, they did not have to go down, and they did. And Bobby Jones went down and worked his mechanics out. They're hoping the same will happen with the left-hander Rodriguez. Now the Mets are now playing back in the middle. They're looking for a double play back in the middle. They'll give up a run in that area.
1-2 now on Kilvio Veras, who's 0 for 2 with a walk tonight. Andrew Jones waiting on deck. Then Chipper Jones. Weiss on third, Burkett on at first. Nobody out, top of the 6th inning. Braves leading the Mets 5-2. Remember, the Braves left the bases loaded in the last inning. They have 2 men on here with nobody out. Veras gets a piece of it, stays alive at 1-2.
You know, for a little guy who does not have a lot of power, he's got 4 home runs, but he strikes out a lot. He struck out 38 times already this year. You don't like to see a little guy in the front end of your order strike out that much. See him put the ball in play because he can run so well.
Now 2-2 on Veras. Andrew Jones on deck.
Now here's a question. Do you run your pitcher who's at first base in this situation with a runner at third? I don't think so, but maybe Bobby will. John Burkett's already huffing and puffing down there.
Bounce to the right side, over the leaping Zeal. The Braves lead is now 6-2 as Weiss scores from third. RBI number 32 for Kilvio Veras.
Well, even if this ball were caught by Alfonso, Pat Mahomes never got off the mound. There was nobody covering at first base on this play. Dave Wallace, the pitching coach, is going out, but you can see this bouncer. See, it gets over Zeal's head. Nobody's covering here, even if Alfonso comes up with this ball cleanly. that. Veras, for a couple reasons. First of all, they can run, but secondly, there was nobody covering.
So the Braves lead is now 6-2. And that is all for Pat Mahomes. Welcome back to the big leagues. Eric Kamak, the 24-year-old right-hander, in relief of Pat Mahomes. Mahomes on the right. Kamak comes in with nobody out. 2 men on. Andrew Jones, Chipper Jones, and then Andres Galarraga, the next 3 Braves hitters.
Ouch. What a way to come into your second major league game. He was an All-American at Lamar University, so, you know, he's been an All-Star at AAA, the International League, so he's a pretty good pitcher. You don't make it to the big leagues without having pretty good stuff normally. But you don't run into these 3 type of hitters one after another in the minor leagues.
No. His second major league appearance, pitched in Colorado back in April, 2 innings. He allowed 4 earned runs. Burkett on second, Kilvio Veras on at first. Andrew Jones at the plate, 2 for 3. He scored 2 runs tonight. Looking to add to the 6-2 Braves lead. And the first pitch from Kamak is ball 1.
You know, it's interesting to watch different hitters have different ways of getting ready to hit. Andrew Jones flattens out his bat over his shoulder, but he also lifts his front heel, and he keeps pushing his weight back to his back leg. See how he's up on his toe here? What that does is push your weight back to your back leg, because you've got to go back before you go forward to hit. And Andrew Jones, and his hands are behind his head, so the head of the bat is way back. Look where his hands are, way behind his head.
Andrew Jones into left center. Payton calls off Agbayani. 1 away here in the Braves' 6th.
This will be interesting. Andrew Jones just missed this pitch, and we're going to take a look at both the pitcher and the batter in sync. Here's the young pitcher delivering on the bottom. Here's Andrew Jones going after this fastball. He gets the head of the bat out, but he just gets under it.
Will face Chipper Jones. 0-1 Chipper. Like Andrew Jones, has scored twice tonight. He has a single and he's walked twice.
They just went after a ball that he normally doesn't chase up there. He doesn't know this pitcher. That's in the young pitcher's favor at this point.
0-2.
When you don't know somebody, and that's one of the things with veteran hitters have a pretty good feel for the pitchers they face. The ones they haven't faced are the ones they're not sure of. They can only go by scouting reports. They can't judge speed right away, and they're not sure of all the pitches they have that they're facing.
We saw the all-time home run list by switch hitters earlier. Bobby Bonilla is 5th, Mickey Mantle 1st. Most home runs by a switch hitter in a single season. Only Mantle hit more in one season. He did it twice. Then Chipper Jones.
So Chipper, by having the 45, broke Todd Hundley's record, National League record.
Chipper into right center. This time Payton calls off Bell. So all Eric Kamak has done is come in and retired first Andrew Jones and then Chipper Jones. Now 2 away, first and second.
The first baseman
for the Braves. Star of the evening, Andres Galarraga, who's driven in 4 runs with a triple in the first and a 3-run homer in the third.
And you're in a situation when I was catching or managing and coaching, one of the things you say, okay, you got 2 tough outs here, but you've got a third now. And boy, this is a tough out here.
Galarraga takes ball 1. He struck out his last time up on 3 pitches. Remember, Piazza thought it was the 3rd out. He started to walk away, and Andrew Jones took third base. 2-0 on the Big Cat.
We've noticed already the kind of power he has to all fields. He hit a shot to right center field off the bottom of the scoreboard and on a pitch that was out over the plate. And when he dives into the ball as he does, he gets hit quite often because the book on him is to pitch him up and in underneath his hands.
Two and one. Looking ahead, Burkett has been on base now quite some time.
Yes, he has. He's been standing out there. So it'll be interesting to see how he responds when he comes out to pitch. You're right. Good call.
K-Mac works his way back into the count. It's now 2-2.
Well, he's one strike away from getting out of this mess. A very difficult situation to be brought into, I should say.
He got him. K-Mac retires Andruw Jones, Chipper Jones, and Galarraga in order. In relief of Pat Mahomes, the Braves add a run in the 6th on 2 hits and now lead the Mets 6-2. We welcome you back to Baseball Thursday on Fox Sports Net from Shea Stadium. First meeting of the season between the Braves and the Mets. Atlanta leading 6-2. As we move to the bottom of the 6th inning, Mets will send the middle of the order to the plate. Mike Piazza, Robin Ventura, and Todd Zeile. Eric K-Mac did some job retiring all 3 hitters he faced in the top of the inning. Jones, and Galarraga.
Well, you made a good point, too, when John Burkett was on base for so long, and this is such a key inning right now because it's the heart of the Mets order. They just got out of a mess with only 1 run scored. They feel fortunate, and the fans are still excited about that, so it's a time for the Mets. This is an inning that's very big for them, and also for the Braves.
Saw the note on Piazza, 17-game hitting streak, 12-game RBI streak. Longest in the National League since 1935. He's driven in 22 runs in his last 12 games. In fact, for Piazza, he is averaging an RBI per game, 65 and 65.
That's amazing. This guy will go down without a doubt, I would think. It's up until, the time that he goes into the Hall of Fame is probably the most or the best hitting catcher ever. I mean, his stats have been incredible.
I'll put you right behind.
Yeah, right behind. All right. Years and miles and whatever you could think of. This guy is an unbelievable offensive weapon. No catchers have hit for the kind of average he's hit for. It's 362 and he doesn't run well. That was his record as a catcher.
Only major leaguer to bat over 300 with 30 home runs and 100 RBIs each of the last 4 seasons. He comes up with his 2nd hit of the night, a leadoff single in the 6th.
He is some kind of hitter. He's red hot, obviously, but also you caught a shot of John Burkett puffing on the mound. When you get a little tired, and this is bringing out Leo Mazzoni to talk to him, when you get a little tired as a pitcher, you might not lose your velocity, but you lose your ability to throw the ball where you want it. And he started out with 2 pitches to Mike Piazza that were nowhere near the plate.
Remember, Burkett was standing on first base, then second for 4 batters at the top of the inning.
Take a look at the last pitch, and you can see Mike Piazza smoked this ball. It's the same pitch that he had earlier in the game for a base hit for 2 runs. It was right down the middle of the plate, somewhat elevated. That's a pitch that normally he'll hit out of the ballpark. Instead, he stayed right on it and hit a line drive to center. That's why he hits for such a good average.
Here's Robin Ventura, who has struck out twice tonight, playing with that sore right shoulder. He did not start the last 2 games, and it's obviously bothering him.
Robin Ventura is what you call a quiet warrior. He's a pistol, too. I don't know if you saw when he, in a rain delay against the Yankees, put on Piazza's shirt and imitated Piazza and slid and dove around on a wet tarp, but he is a quiet warrior. He'll play hurt. Last year he played with a bad knee and a bad shoulder the entire second part, or last third of the season, let's put it that way.
Ground ball, second baseman gets by Maris into right field. Piazza on his way to third. And the Mets have runners on the corners. Third error of the game committed by the Braves. Maris could not play the double play grounder. It's his 6th error of the year.
Kenny took his eye off the ball. He sees Piazza coming. He's going to rush. He thinks he's got a double play. He wasn't concentrating. You got to make sure of one. You tell little kids in the Little League, make sure of one. Now, he didn't get that one. He knows he's got 2 runners that don't run real well.
First and third, nobody out. Todd Zeile at the plate. The Braves infield has committed 3 errors. The shortstop Weiss, the third baseman Chipper Jones, and now the second baseman Kilby Overas. Zeile walked in the second inning, fly to right in the 4th. Mets threatening, trailing 6-2. Zeile at the plate, Jay Payton on deck.
As you mentioned, Kenny, the Braves defense certainly had not helped. As you see the bullpen, Jason Marquis, a local kid, the right-hander, Bruce Chen, the left-hander.
Base hit left field. Piazza scores. Ventura holds it second. RBI number 47 for Zeile. It's now 6-3.
Now the Mets are getting a little help here from the Atlanta Brave defense, but the Mets also throughout the time as Bobby Cox is going out and he's grumbling, he's going to bring young Jason Marquis in, the kid from Staten Island, who comes very highly rated. You bet the butterflies will be in his stomach. Local boy coming into Shea Stadium, first time back in New York.
So the 21-year-old right-hander out of Tottenville High School, he graduated only 4 years ago in '96 from nearby Staten Island. He will come in to pitch for the Braves when we return. Don Burkett on the right through 99 pitches. He leaves with a 6-3 lead, but 2 base runners are his responsibility as the 21-year-old right-hander Jason Marquis, who was originally called up by the Braves back on June 5th when John Rocker was sent down to AAA Richmond. Marquis out of Staten Island, New York, will make his 6th appearance in the majors.
He's been one of their top prospects for the last 4 years. I watched this kid play junior high school basketball. He was a teammate of the son of my very close friend from Staten Island, school principal Larry Imbrosino, and he was touting me on this boy when he was a little leaguer. This kid has a lot of poise, but he is in a tough situation here.
Jay Payton, 1 for 2. You never cease to amaze me. I always tell people, you have some connection to just about every player, coach, manager in the majors. You saw Jason Marquis play junior high school basketball.
Yeah, I did.
It wasn't that long ago.
No, it really wasn't.
7 years.
Yeah, I think you're right. But you can see he's gunned up. He overthrew that first pitch at home. Can you imagine the excitement?
Payton to deep right field. The catch is made by Jordan. Ventura on his way to third. So the Mets have runners on the corners with 1 out.
Bobby Cox is looking for outs here, and now with runners at first and third, if they get a ground ball, there's a potential double play situation.
During our commercial break, Jeff, as the bullpen door open, the crowd here at Shea chanted continuously, "We want Rocker, we want Rocker." He will obviously not come in this early, but they want to see John Rocker pitch tonight. Bobby Valentine doesn't necessarily want to, because that would probably mean the Braves have the lead.
Yes.
Benny Agbayani 0 for 2, struck out in the third, grounded into a double play in the fourth inning.
Agbayani is so dangerous, Kenny. He's got this high leg kick. He's almost like a slow pitch softball type of hitter. Lifts his leg, but if he will make a mistake, get down in the zone, he can get you. Remember that grand slam home run he hit in Japan to win that second game? Right in the beginning of the year against the Cubs. He has really got beat very strong.
One of 6 grand slams hit by the Mets this year. 2-1 on Agbayani. Lenny Harris waiting on deck. He will pitch hit for the pitcher K-Mac. Harris reacquired by the Mets a couple of weeks back from Arizona for Bill Pulsipher.
Lenny Harris, a good pinch hitter, and to go with Matt Franco, the outstanding left-handed pinch hitter. Bobby has got a pretty good bench, Bobby Valentine. Most of his bench, original bench guys are playing now. Agbayani and Payton and Mora.
Now 3-1, so Jason Marquis in danger of walking Agbayani, which would load the bases for one of the all-time great pinch hitters, Lenny Harris.
Well, what Marquis has to do right here to be successful is throw the ball down and away or down in the strike zone. Hopefully he can get a ground ball.
Nope, it's a base hit into right field. Coming in to score is Ventura. The Mets are now within 2 runs. RBI number 25 for Benny Agbayani.
Well, as you look at Leo Mazzoni, he's very worried, but Agbayani did a nice bit of hitting here. 3-1 count. He didn't try to do too much. He got the ball low and away, and he hit a bullet to right field. Here comes the chant again, wanting Rocker for the Mets.
Number 19, Lenny Harris.
Chipper Jones, the veteran, talking to Jason Marquis, the young kid on the mound. Again, remember, he's a local kid. I don't care whether he's local or not. When you're this young coming into a crowded ballpark with all the emotion that's here, it's got to be tough.
I don't think he ever pitched in front of 45,000, 50,000 at Tottenville High School.
No, I'm sure he didn't. They had great teams here. But coming home to pitch, that really is a pressure-packed thing for any youngster.
Lenny Harris, 121 career pinch hits, more than any other active player in the majors. Batting with 1 out, runners on first and second. 2 runs on 3 base hits, and the error committed by Veras. Another chance for Veras. To second for 1, over to first, double play. So Veras makes amends for his error earlier. Mets do score 2. And have pulled within 2. .33-year-old right-hander Turk Wendell is the 4th Mets pitcher tonight. How about the job by Eric K-Mac in the 6th inning? Came in with 2 base runners, nobody out. He retired Andrew Jones, Chipper Jones, and Andres Galarraga in order.
It was so big because the game could have gotten blown wide open there, and he got out of it with those outstanding hitters in the middle of the Braves order. And what we said going into that inning there was so big for the Braves to shut down the Mets, to keep the fans out of it, so on. Couldn't do it. The error kept the inning going, and the Mets scored twice. But now they got Turk Wendell in the ball game. You can see John Rocker moving around in the bullpen, getting loose. Turk Wendell, boy, is he a free spirit.
Ryan George takes ball one. Jordan, Hubbard, and Lopez for the Braves here in the 7th. Mets battling back thanks to 3 Braves errors. Atlanta's lead is now 6-4. Now back 1-1.
You watch Turk Wendell running all over the field. He fires the rosin bag down. He jumps over the foul line. When he was a young starter in the Cubs organization, came up to the big leagues, he'd shoot licorice and go in and there's a rocket at shortstop. Nice play by Moore. That's a tough play. That's a sinking line drive that Brian Jordan hit. But Wendell has toned his act down a little bit, if you can imagine that. He used to brush his teeth between each inning. Now he fires the rosin down. He gets the fans going.
Both teams well into their bullpen, and the question remains, will it turn into a situation where Bobby Cox will go to John Rocker? Trinidad Hubbard batting for the first time. You would think if the Braves lead remains 2 runs, we will see Rocker. You said it during the open, Bobby Cox, you don't think will do anything out of the ordinary. It's just like any other game.
Oh, I think he has to feel that way. He needs a win. He knows that. You got to keep establishing. First of all, the win means so much, but establishing that you are the team to beat, and that's with every game when you're on top.
Remember, the Braves had a 15-game winning streak earlier this season. Since then, they are only 27 and 24.
Yeah, they've had some problems in their bullpen.
One big one if you ask the folks in New York.
Yeah, that's good. A lot of people would comment, yeah, we know the one you're talking about, but when you have Rocker not performing the way he's capable of at times, remember, he got to a point where he couldn't throw strikes. They had to send him to the minor leagues. And you've had injuries. Rudy Sienez went out.
Trinidad Hubbard walks.
The catcher, number 8, Javi Lopez.
A 1-out walk issued by Wendell. Coming up, following baseball, the National Sports Report. Yankees trade Ricky Leday for David Justice. Post-game coverage from Shea. Agassi on the ropes at Wimbledon. It's all coming up after the game right here on Fox Sports Net. Braves leading 6-4. Andres Galarraga has driven in 4 of the Atlanta runs. Here's Javi Lopez. He takes ball 1. Lopez 0 for 3 tonight. He's not gotten the ball out of the infield.
Javi Lopez is immensely strong. He's a big, strong kid, and the 2 balls that he hit in his last 2 at-bats were pop-ups. He just got under the ball, and they were out over the plate. He tried to hook him, but he's one of these guys that can really mash the ball if you get it in the middle of the plate. Chasing that ball away from him and pulling off a little bit. Remember, he only played part of last year. He had knee surgery. There was some concern that he would not be able to get back and catch because the surgery was so serious. But he is a big, strong kid.
Hubbard, the base runner, 1 out, top of the 7th inning. Turk Wendell, the 4th Mets pitcher. We have some more news regarding Rick Reed's injury, which we'll pass along. As Hubbard takes his lead off first, Lopez takes strike 2. It's now 1-2. Reed, earlier, it was announced, suffered a strained left calf, but later word indicates a fractured left wrist. As John Rocker signs an autograph out of the Braves bullpen. He got him. Lopez strikes out. First strikeout for Turk Wendell. As we set it down to Steve Lyons.
Hey guys, I'm out here by the bullpen now. As you can see, you can't really see behind there. We had John Rocker milling around, throwing a little bit. Then he went back into the tunnel for a while. Everyone was wondering if he was hurt or if someone threw something at him. He just had to go to the bathroom. He took 3 security guards with him. They had to follow him in there. Hey, they got to go everywhere he goes now. Let's go back to you guys.
Very in-depth report from Steve.
Probably
3
more than we
security
needed.
guards.
That's why he was signing those balls, huh?
The question is, did they go all the way in with him?
I don't really care.
Now, for the viewers who have never spent time in a bullpen, where is the closest men's room to the visiting bullpen here at Shea?
There is one right in that bullpen underneath that canopy along the side wall there.
These are the essential questions that only you can provide the answers to.
I spent a lot of time in that bullpen.
I thought you were going to say in the bathroom. Foul ball down the right field line. Walt Weiss, 2 hits tonight, 2 for 3.
NYPD all over that bullpen. You can imagine John Rocker's a tough kid, but his heart's got to be pounding when the thought of coming into this game goes through his mind. Now there's one of the things that Mike Piazza can do and doesn't get a lot of credit for. That ball was in the dirt, could have gone by him, would have put a runner in scoring position. He just snatched this thing up. This guy does not get enough credit for what he does behind the plate. He handles the staff well. He busts his tail at all times. He blocks the ball well.
Off-speed pitch just misses. 2-1 on Weiss.
That's what I was talking about, the little things that Mike Piazza did. You see him try to hold that ball there, the ball that was a little bit low. Nowadays they call that framing. There's a throw to first base, and Hubbard was standing on the base. But those little things, trying to help your pitching staff, and remember, this is a great big guy. See, he's pointing down. Puts that ball down.
2-2 on Walt Weiss. 2 outs. Top of the 7th inning from Shea. 6-4 Braves as Wendell takes a spin around the back of the mound. Nice juggling act with the rosin bag. Runner goes, and Weiss was called out on strikes for the 3rd out. So we head to the bottom of the 7th inning with the Braves leading 6-4. Let's take a look at what's coming your way tonight on the National Sports Report. And for that, we take you to the Fox Network Center. 7th inning stretch time at Shea. Braves 6-10-3. Mets 4-7-0. Galarraga has driven in 4 runs. Piazza's 17-game hitting streak. Our game summary brought to you by McDonald's. 1st inning, the Big Cat. An RBI triple. It gets by Jay Payton in center field. Chipper Jones scores from first. 3rd inning, Galarraga again. A 3-run homer to right off the bottom of the scoreboard. Bottom of the 3rd inning, Mike Piazza. A 2-run single to left center. Scoring Mora and Bell. And then in the 6th, Benny Agbayani drives in the Mets' 4th run with this single to right. And that is where we stand. Bottom of the 7th inning, Jason Marquis working his 2nd inning in relief of John Burkett. Melvin Moore leading things off for the Mets, top of the order. Mora, Bell, and Alfonso.
Neil Mazzoni on the dead run out of the dugout. That's the first pitch, actually the 2nd pitch thrown this inning, and he was underneath both of them.
Jeff, you mentioned earlier Melvin Moore, who is at the plate right now for the Mets, hit his first Major League home run against Kevin Norwood of the Braves in Game 2 of last year's NLCS.
What a time to do it. Postseason, everybody's watching, the pressure's on. It didn't show with the way that kid played in the postseason. But here he is trying to get things going right now, and young Jason Marquis on the mound is behind him now in the count and leading off. You've got to get that leadoff hitter if you're the pitcher.
On strike, 2-1 on Mora, who is looking to extend his 8-game hitting streak. He reached on an error and scored in the 3rd. Derek Bell, who has a 10-game hitting streak, waiting on deck. Pop foul behind the Mets dugout. 2-2 on Mora.
You know, Kenny, I'm watching young Jason Marquis throw. He throws from a little low arm angle, and he gets action back in on right-handers, so it'll move away from left-handers, but he gets some movement on the ball.
Strikes out Mora. First strikeout for Jason Marquis.
Boy, that was a nasty pitch, and a 2-2 count. The bottom fell out of this pitch. Watch his arm angle, a little bit low, and look at the bottom drop on that pitch. In fact, Javi Lopez looked to see if he had it. That's got to be either a split finger or a changeup. In the old days, anybody threw something like that, the bottom fell out and it was hard, they'd call it a spitter.
There's Derek Bell. Bell 1 for 2 with a walk. He scored a run back in the 3rd inning. 10-game hitting streak. He's also scored a run in 10 straight games.
Well, he got off to a tremendously hot start this season. Hit a stretch where he wasn't swinging the bat real well, and he's hot again.
Popped up to the left side. Chipper Jones calling for it. 2 away.
I can see why the Braves like this young right-hander, Jason Marquis. He just threw a ball that just took off through the strike zone and was up and out of it by the time Derek Bell swung at the pitch, and he popped it up because he couldn't get on top of it. This youngster's ball moves all over the place.
Marquis, just 21 years of age, drafted in 1996 by the Braves. Here's Edgardo Alfonzo, who's 1 for 3 tonight. He takes a called strike. Marquis drafted with a special selection between the 1st and 2nd rounds in '96 as John Rocker continues his unique stretching routine in the Braves bullpen. One on Alfonzo, 2 outs, bottom of the 7th inning. Braves 6, Mets 4. 1 and 2.
The Braves are doing a good thing with this youngster here. They're bringing him out of the bullpen to get his feet wet at the major league level. But he's got a chance. Watching his stuff, he's a starter type pitcher from what I've seen so far.
Now 2 balls, 2 strikes. The count is now full, 3-2 on Alfonzo with Mike Piazza waiting on deck.
Comes up every inning, doesn't he?
Seems like it.
Javi Lopez now, he'd like this young right-hander to throw a strike here and challenge Alfonzo. John Rocker now up in the pen.
First base umpire Brian Runge says ball 4. Alfonzo a 2-out walk. Mike Piazza representing the potential tying run.
Well, we've seen Mike Piazza hit 2 bullets. The first one in his 2nd at bat in the 3rd inning drove in 2 runs, and then the 6th inning he got another line drive to center field. He hasn't tried to pull the ball, and against this youngster, he doesn't know this Marquis. But the book on Piazza is to drive the ball in on his letters. He gets his arms extended. He's so strong. We'll see how the youngster pitches him.
Do you think Bobby Cox would perhaps go to Rocker earlier than the 9th inning?
He might, depending on the game situation. He might. One of the things you concern yourself with as a manager when you have a very emotionally high-strung pitcher, you don't like to take him more than 1 inning because after he sits down after being out there for an inning, it's tough to get all the juices flowing again, to go back out again.
Long foul off the bat of Piazza, now 2.
Now, see, Mike Piazza took the first pitch from young Jason Marquis because he couldn't gauge his speed. He wanted to get a feel of it. This last pitch beat him. In other words, he was late on it. He still doesn't have the gauge on it. But Mike Piazza has great power to right field. He doesn't have to tune the dial up too much to get that head of the bat out there.
Marquis steps off. Alfonso, the runner on first. 2 away in the Mets 7th. He got him. Marquis strikes out Piazza, his second strikeout of the inning. So we head to the 8th as the wait continues for John Rocker. Up for the Braves pen with his club leading by 2 runs. Welcome back to Baseball Thursday from Shea Stadium here on Fox Sports Net. Kenny Albert with Jeff Torborg and Steve Lyons. Braves leading the Mets 6-4 in the 8th as we get closer to John Rocker time. This is Keith Lockhart pinch hitting for the pitcher Marquis. Keith grounds out to Alfonso, and Lockhart is now 0 for 19 as a pinch hitter this season as John Rocker continues to warm up in the Atlanta Braves bullpen.
Well, there's a good chance we will see him because you know who the first hitter is. It's the only left-hander in the lineup. That's Robin Ventura. Young Jason Marquis did an excellent job relieving John Burkett, who really did an excellent job himself.
Who was filling in for the under-the-weather Greg Maddux.
Yes. Braves have got pretty good pitching tonight. The defense has really let them down. Caused a couple big innings.
No ball, 2-strike count on Kilby Veras. Veras drove in the Braves' 6th run with an RBI single in the 6th. Now remember, the Braves just pinch hit for the pitcher Marquis, and Rocker is the only Brave warming. So it looks like we will see John Rocker in the bottom of the 8th inning. Now 2-2 on Veras.
It'll be interesting to see if as soon as he leaves that bullpen whether Bobby Cox gets another reliever up behind him. Because just a week and a half to 2 weeks ago, as we see Veras taking this count to 3-2. When Rocker came in, he threw 6 straight balls. They got him out of there immediately. Well, with all that you're going to hear here tonight, Bobby, I think, will probably, as soon as Rocker leaves the pen, you don't want somebody warming up next to him, will get somebody up.
Veras called out on strikes. 2 away in the Braves' 8th. Well, Jeff, coming up 1 week from tonight, you and I will be in St. Louis for the matchup of Mark McGwire and Ken Griffey Jr. Reds and Cards. Some of you will see the Mariners and the Angels. Check local listings for the game and time in your area on Fox Sports Net. Andrew Jones steps in with 2 away, and he takes ball 1. Andrew 2 for 4 tonight. He scored 2 runs. Now 2 balls, 1 strike on Andrew Jones. Turk Wendell pitching his 2nd inning of relief for the Mets. Hard grounder. Ventura, his first chance tonight with the sore shoulder. He throws him out. So a 1-2-3-8 for Wendell. And it will be John Rocker time here at Shea Stadium as we will keep it right here. We will not throw the commercial for those of you tuning in here on Fox Sports Net as John Rocker gets set to come in the bottom of the 8th. Let's throw it out to Steve Lyons. Steve?
Pretty wild out here right now as John Rocker gets ready to come into the
introduction needed.
I guess not. Does he make some kind of interest running out of there?
You see him wag his tongue as he took his first couple of strides out of the bullpen?
I'll tell you what, he gets himself gunned up. I'd love to see a pitcher come running into the mound like that. Even though he's liable to be out of gas by the time he gets there, it really gets the adrenaline going. And this guy pitches on emotion.
Those of you who have just joined us from Arizona, Kenny Albert, Jeff Torborg, Steve Lyons, here at Shea Stadium in Flushing, New York. Braves leading the Mets 6-4, bottom of the 8th inning, as John Rocker just moments ago sprinted in from the Braves bullpen, and he will come on to pitch here in the 8th inning for Atlanta. His return to New York after the comments, the Sports Illustrated article. Brian Jordan, one of the Braves, one of his teammates who has been very outspoken following the Sports Illustrated article written by Jeff Pearlman. So Rocker comes on to face Robin Ventura here in the bottom of the 8th inning with a crowd of 46,998 booing Rocker in unison here at Shea Stadium as Ventura fouls off the first pitch.
I'll tell you what, those teammates that have gotten down on him for a lot, he said, will be really happy if he throws that 97-plus mile an hour fastball and that real hard type of breaking ball over and helps this club win. They need him to win this year. His numbers aren't that bad except for the walks. You can see he was wild. Those 33 walks, they hurt. 35 strikeouts can make up for those, though, in a hurry.
Crowd cheers, ball one.
Now, see, that's the pitch he's going to have trouble with if the emotions are really involved. That's that hard breaking ball. When you overthrow a breaking ball, sometimes it gets away from you. Baseball players will say you're wrapping it. And that's because you overthrow it, and that's what happened on that pitch. But when he gets it together, boy, he has got a nasty breaking ball, both a curveball and a slider.
Crowd cheering and jeering his every move. He asked for a new ball from home plate umpire Rocky Rowe. The crowd booed. The 1-1. Now 2 balls, 1 strike. Robin Ventura 0 for 3 lifetime against Rocker.
Great call by Javi Lopez. He just missed high with a curveball. He came back with it, and he made a little bit of adjustment, but not quite low enough.
Three balls, 1 strike.
He's really gunned up. You can take a look at his face. You know, he's always pitched with great emotion. Now he's overthrowing. He's got to cut it back just a little bit. And the Braves have a pitcher in the bullpen behind him. As soon as he left the bullpen, they got a right-hander up, throwing behind him.
Full count.
Ventura went after a bad ball. Remember, he's got a bad shoulder, and he's trying to cheat to get out and ahead of this pitch because he can't catch up unless he gets going early. And he just swung at ball 4. You got Bobby rocking a little bit with Leo now. It's not just Leo.
The payoff pitch from Rocker. He got him. He strikes out the first batter he faces back in New York, Robin Ventura, after falling behind 3-1.
Well, unfortunately, Robin helped him out for the Mets' sake. He went after ball 4 on a 3-1 pitch, but the 3-2 pitch, he just threw it right by him. Boy, that had good life. This guy's got some arm. All right, watch the emotion here on the mound and in the dugout. Yeah, all right.
Corrales as well.
Yep.
Now Todd Zeile facing Rocker for the first time. And Zeile takes ball 1.
There's that curveball. See, he's overthrowing the dickens out of that. What he ought to try to do is bounce it.
Ball strike, 1-1. 1-1 on Zeal. One away, bottom of the 8th inning. Braves leading 6-4. John Rocker back in New York.
John Rocker does something in his delivery you don't see many pitchers do. He grabs hold of the ball and he pounds it in his glove on the way to the plate. He keeps pounding it in his glove.
1-2 on Zeal.
Now it's when he comes to the top of his windup, or his delivery, I should say. He takes the ball in his bare hand and he pounds it into the glove. It's a habit that allows him to get a better grip on the ball. But you don't see many pitchers do this. Is he fidgety enough for you?
Zeal gets a piece of it. Stays alive at 1-2.
Right at the top of his delivery. When he goes, his last move, he pounds his left hand with the ball back in the glove. It gives him a feeling that he's got the grip on the ball.
Two balls, two strikes.
Now here's what we're talking about. Watch him pound the ball into the glove. Right at the end, he'll hit it one hard time. One last time, he'll hit it real hard.
Ground ball to the shortstop. Weiss moving to his right. He throws out Zeal for the second out.
Weiss has had some plays tonight that have been very tough. Weiss has always had a great arm. When he's at the University of North Carolina, he used to close some games out. He threw 94 miles an hour. And he's had some difficult ones, and he makes this one on the run to get Todd Zeal.
John Rocker has quieted the Shea Stadium crowd by striking out Robin Ventura and then inducing Todd Zeal into the ground out to the shortstop, Walt Weiss. Two away in the bottom of the 8th inning. Jay Payton 1 for 3. Takes a called strike. Nail-biting time here at Shea. First of a 4-game series. Bobby Cox, Jeff, would go back to Rocker in the 9th?
I don't know. That's a good question. You get all right-handers. He probably will, but we'll wait and see. Then you go one hitter at a time if you're Bobby. But all of a sudden, he's got in the groove. See, he threw the fastball strike on Payton. Now he's gotten a curveball over. Now Payton's in trouble. Javi Lopez is liable to call another curveball in the dirt here. Try to get the ball down. Boy, it's tough. You got to make a quick decision against this guy. He throws so hard. With a fastball up and in, Jay Payton was just barely able to fight that off. But remember, as a hitter now, when you got a pitcher on the mound who can get it up there 96, 97 miles an hour, you also have to defend against the breaking ball. That ball gets there in a hurry. You've got to make a quick decision. It could be that fastball they ran up in on the hands of Payton is Javi's way of setting it up for a breaking ball down. Let's see what they do here. There it is.
In the dirt, 1-2.
Take a look at what he's got. He's got a very hard fastball. He has been known to touch 100 miles an hour. He's got a curveball and a slider. They're both hard. They're both sharp. One's a little bit bigger than the other. Obviously, he's an emotional pitcher. Maximum effort means he gives you everything he's got out there. He uses those big, strong legs and drives to the plate. Mets fans aren't too sure here. They've seen Rocker throw the ball hard and throw strikes. They know they're in a little bit of trouble.
Rocker seems to have taken a little bit of the life out of the Mets fans after retiring both Ventura and Zeal.
Yeah, I think that 3-1 pitch was the big one that Robin went after. You could see why
1-2 count. Jay Payton, 2 outs, bottom of the 8th inning. Braves leading 6-4. Out of the 3rd, Chipper Jones. A 1-2-3-8 for John Rocker. Walking slowly off the mound towards the Braves dugout, with officers lining the ground in front of the dugout. We head to the 9th. Welcome back to Shea Stadium. 37-year-old left-hander Dennis Cook is the 5th Mets pitcher. As we take a look in sync at John Rocker, retiring Jay Payton on the ground to the 3rd. As Rocker pitched a 1-2-3-8 and received the congratulatory high fives from teammates and coaches.
Well, you got Dennis Cook now in for the Mets, and as you mentioned, Dennis has got a lot of experience, and he is struggling this year. 39 hits in 29 innings. Not what you're used to seeing from Dennis Cook. He had a sensational year last year for the Mets. He kind of wore out down the stretch a little bit. He had pitched so much, so maybe this year it's a little bit different. Maybe it'd be hotter the second half of the season. He's been around. He was an All-American at Texas University, was a very good athlete, good hitter there.
A double switch. Kurt Abbott comes into play center field. He will bat in the number 9 spot. Jay Payton, the number 7 hitter, made the last out, so Cook will bat in the 7th spot. As Chipper Jones leads off for the Braves here in the 9th. Jones, Galarraga, and Ryan Jordan to face Cook, with the Braves leading 6-4.
Now this is what you would do as a manager when you're facing the Braves. If you can, you try to turn Chipper Jones around, except for last year, hitting from the right side, he got his act together. In fact, hit a big home run off of Dennis Cook down in Atlanta when they swept the Mets near the end of the season. Chipper Jones hitting .310 from the right side, .323 from the left.
The 1-1 from Cook. Now 1 ball, 2 strikes.
Feeding Chipper Jones a steady diet of breaking balls. It was a fastball that he hit out last year against Dennis Cook in a big at-bat.
Chipper getting set for the 1-2. Base hit left field. Second hit of the game for Chipper Jones. A leadoff single here in the top of the 9th inning. Well, this week on Fox Saturday Baseball, the 3rd of the 4-game series between the Braves and the Mets this Saturday on Fox. Some of you will see the Red Sox and the White Sox. It all gets underway at 12:30 Eastern, 11:30 Central. Dodgers, Giants, Reds, and Diamondbacks. Where will you be, Jeff?
I'll be in Chicago watching the red-hot White Sox go against the Red Sox. Interesting about that game was originally Pedro Martinez. There's that guy, that cameraman I told you walked in with a helmet on. But Pedro Martinez was originally scheduled to pitch Saturday, and I just heard before the game, we heard that he went on the DL today.
And the Red Sox beat the Orioles 12-4. Line drive caught by the second baseman, Alfonso. He doubles up Chipper Jones. So 2 away in the top half of the 9th inning. The executive producers of Fox Sports Net are Arthur Smith and Bill Borson. The coordinating producer for Baseball Thursday is Larry Myers. Tonight's game produced by Tom Hewitt, directed by Jeff Mitchell. The head of field operations is Andrea Jenkins. Thanks to our entire crew who went above and beyond tonight here at Shea. Mark Alsmeyer, Rick Tugman, Gary Nicholas, Jim Pells, Dan Litwin, Kevin Rose, Tom Thomas, Dick Copley, and our statistician Eric Burles. And a special thank you to Brian McCullough, who worked on many of the features and some of the other video you saw today. Brian in from Los Angeles, along with Steve Lyons. Brian Jordan, 1 for 4 with an RBI.
Steve Lyons has been all over this ballpark, a lot like when he played for me with the White Sox.
And did he play all 9 innings in one game for you?
Yes, against the Cubs, an exhibition game. Took me 40 minutes to figure out how to do the darn thing.
I mean, Steve didn't have it all figured out?
No. You know, that takes a little bit to figure out. In order, you got to move everybody. You know, you got to keep moving them around, and he played all 9 positions. He's a heck of an athlete.
How'd he pitch?
Pitched pretty well. He pitched in a regular season game for me as well against Oakland.
Speaking of good athletes, Brian Jordan, a former defensive back with the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, he's brought a kind of a new attitude to the Braves last year. He's got that football mentality.
Just missing 2-2.
Does he have one of the most unique stances you've ever seen? He pushes his weight back about as in an exaggerated style as you ever see. Straightens out his front leg and pushes his weight way back on that back leg. Look at that stance.
Braves. John Rocker pitched a perfect 8th. Nobody warming up with the Braves bullpen. But we should see Rocker in the 9th. Mets will send Agbayani, Abbott, and Mora to the plate. Full. 3 balls, 2 strikes. Mets 7-game winning streak in jeopardy. Mets 2 in back of the Braves. The payoff pitch from Cook. Jordan fouls another one off.
You get a feeling of, you never know in a game like this to start with, but these two teams, the way they played each other over the course of the last couple of years and in postseason last year, plus taking a very emotional pitcher on an emotional evening back out again where he's got to get the adrenaline going again, I can see that this is not over yet.
When you think back to some of the great games these teams have played through the years. Of course, the 15-inning Game 5 of the NLCS last year. They played some other long ones. That July 4th game that went till about 4 in the morning down at Fulton County Stadium.
The 4th of July, is that what that was?
Back in the mid-'80s.
And they had the fireworks after the game was over in the middle of the night.
Cook strikes out Jordan. After Jordan fouled off a couple of pitches. So we head to the bottom of the 9th here at Shea. 6-4 Braves. We will not see John Rocker in the 9th. It will be Kerry Ligtenberg coming in to try and finish things off for the Braves as we check in one more time with Steve Lyons.
But Kenny, the emotion and the excitement out there in the bullpen where I was standing when John Rocker came into the game was like a playoff atmosphere for baseball. That's the way it's been all night here as the game has gone on. Also, a tremendous move by Bobby Cox to get him in this game, get his feet wet, let him have some success, but not have to close the game. You bring Kerry Ligtenberg in to do that. You're going to see John Rocker in a closing situation later in this series, I think, if they need him. Back to you guys.
All right, thanks very much, Steve. So it will be the 29-year-old right-hander, Kerry Ligtenberg, who missed all of last year following Tommy John surgery. Ligtenberg will try and earn his 6th save of the season with the Braves leading the Mets 6-4.
Well, Kenny, we were doing a lot of guessing up here because that bullpen, you can't see anybody warming up down there from here. I thought they would back him up with a right-hander, and they did. We just couldn't see him warming up. And I agree with Steve Lyons. Bobby Cox got the pressure off. He got a good outing from him and got him out of the game. And course, Leitenberg has 5 saves this season. 2 years ago, he had 30 saves with the Braves before he injured his arm.
Benny Agbayani leading off for the Mets. A pinch hitter in the on-deck circle, Mark Johnson, just called up from AAA. He had the game-winning hit for the Mets last night in the 6th inning against Florida. Agbayani, 1 for 3 with an RBI. 1-1. So John Rocker pitched a perfect 8th. As you said, the key pitch, the 3-1 to Robin Ventura. He wound up striking out Ventura. Zeal and Payton both grounded out. So Rocker retired all 3 batters he faced. Agbayani got a piece of it off the end of the bat. He broke the bat. 1-2.
Well, you talk about this game being a game of changes and a game of inches. If Robin Ventura does not swing at that 3-1 pitch, he might have walked him. Who knows what happens?
Well, coming up following the Mets and the Braves here on Fox Sports Net, the National Sports Report. Yankees trade Ricky Leday for David Justice. They also beat the Tigers 8-0. Post-game coverage of John Rocker's appearance here at Shea. And news from Wimbledon. It's all coming up immediately following the game. The National Sports Report right here on Fox Sports Net. Well, some of the crowd has filed out. They came and saw what they were waiting for. Although those remaining would obviously like a Mets victory. That's in what, 7 straight. 2-2 on Benny Agbayani. Jeff, an amazing stat with regard to the Mets' recent play. In their last 24 games, they've gone 16-8. They had the lead at some point in all 8 of the losses. They have not led tonight. So should the Braves hang on and win this game, it would be the first time in the last 25 games the Mets did not have a lead at some point.
Well, the right-handers could have a little problem with Leitenberg, but Agbayani likes the ball away. Remember his last at bat, he did exactly that, only shot on a line to right field. Leitenberg drops down from a low arm angle to try to get that angle on the right-handers, but Agbayani, as we've seen already in this game, can hit the ball to right field, which he has to do against Leitenberg if he keeps the ball out over the plate.
Agbayani has never faced Leitenberg. The 2-2. Agbayani fouls it back to the screen. Braves leading 6-4. 4 RBIs for Andres Galarraga. A first-inning triple, a third-inning 3-run home run. Gilby Veras and Brian Jordan drove in the other Braves runs. Mike Piazza, a 2-run single in the third for the Mets, extending his hitting streak to 17 games. Agbayani to deep center, but Andrew Jones makes it look easy. 1 away. Jeff, usually we choose a Nissan play of the game. Tonight, it is our Nissan, I guess you can call it our moment of the game, as John Rocker sprinted in from the Braves bullpen to pitch the 8th, and he retired the side in order.
Now pitching for the Atlanta Braves, number 49.
Well, he definitely was a big part of the story. An interesting part of this story is that Bobby Valentine made a double switch before to get Kurt Abbott up in the 9th spot, and now he's pinched hit for the guy he made a double switch for, with Mark Johnson, a big left-hander, originally in a Pirate organization. Another one of those quarterbacks out of Dartmouth, wasn't he?
Yep. Yes, he was.
Normally, when you make that double switch, you get to the point where you don't have to pinch hit for the guy.
Johnson, the game-winning hit, as we mentioned, for the Mets last night. He's 3 of 13 with the big club, just called up from AAA Norfolk earlier this week.
And I remember when he first came to the big leagues, he's a big, strong kid. He had this wide-open stance, a lot like Galarraga, with big-time power. And then he started bouncing around to the minor leagues.
Johnson called out on strikes. So the Braves 1 out away from ending the Mets' 7-game winning streak.
Number 6, Melvin Mora.
Would John Rocker enter the game tonight in the Braves' first game back in New York? And the answer, a resounding yes, as he retired the side in order in the 8th. Kerry Ligtenberg looking to do the same in the 9th. Melvin Mora fouls off the first pitch. And, you know, lost in all the commotion regarding Rocker, the Braves starter tonight, John Burkett, who found out only today that he would start the game. Greg Maddux took ill. Burkett allowed only 2 runs on 6 hits and 5+ innings. And he is the pitcher of record for Atlanta. Well, the Mets are obviously very concerned about their starting pitcher, Rick Reed, who suffered a fractured left wrist. Probably on the line drive up the middle in the 3rd off the bat of Andruw Jones, but he may have hurt the wrist even more when he knocked over the water cooler in the dugout.
Yeah, afterwards, you don't know which was really the injury movement that he made.
And he also strained his right calf.
Well, remember when that ball went shooting through the middle, we talked about after that he wasn't locating real well. We said, well, that could be the ball goes through the middle of the field that catches your attention. You start getting to a finished position too early. Well, also, if you got a fractured wrist, that should have some effect.
Mora stays alive with 2 outs, bottom of the 9th inning. Of course, Jason Marquis out of the bullpen in his first Major League appearance back home. Pitched 2 innings, allowed only 1 hit, struck out 2. So a terrific job by the Braves bullpen tonight, shutting down the Mets in the late innings. As Mora pops this one foul. Mets without a base hit since the 6th. Bullpen, Marquis, Rocker, and Ligtenberg has faced 12 Mets hitters. Only 1 base hit. Agbayani back in the 6th. Braves bullpen leads the majors in saves with 27. Rocker has 12. Ligtenberg looking for his 6th.
Well, as we talked, there was an awful lot of hype in this game about John Rocker, but this series was such a big series to begin with, and this first game is so important. If the Braves should win this and the Mets sweep, the Braves can only go away with a tie.
Mora called out on strikes. Ligtenberg strikes out 2 in the 9th, and the Braves win it 6-4. They now lead the Mets by 3 games in the National League East. John Rocker pitches a perfect 8th inning. Kerry Ligtenberg a perfect 9th. 6-11-3 for the Braves, 4-7-0 for the Mets.
Well, this is a big win for the Braves, and it's not only a loss for the Mets, it could be a big loss losing Rick Reed to their starting pitcher. So this could be a very damaging loss in a lot more ways than one for the Mets.
Burkett, the winner, he is now 6-3. Reed, the loser, he is 4-2. Save number 6 for Kerry Ligtenberg. So the Braves win it by the score of 6-4. They take the first of this 4-game series from the Mets here at Shea Stadium. As John Rocker, the big story, retired the Mets in order in the 8th inning. He struck out Ventura, Zeal, and Payton, then grounded out. So the Braves win it 6-4 this weekend on Fox Saturday Baseball. Some of you will see the Braves and the Mets. Others, the Red Sox and the White Sox, plus other regional action. Coverage begins at 12:30 Eastern. Later on Saturday at 8:30 Eastern, the Mariners take on the Rangers on FX Baseball Saturday night. Baseball Thursday on Fox Sports Net continues next week as the Reds take on the Cardinals. Mariners meet the Angels. Check local listings. Stay right here. The National Sports Report is next in most areas. Yankees make a trade. Ricky Leday for David Justice. Post-game coverage from Shea. Agassi on the ropes at Wimbledon. John Rocker retires the side in the 8th. For Jeff Torborg, Steve Lyons, and our entire Fox Sports Net crew. Kenny Albert saying so long from Shea Stadium. You've been watching Baseball Thursday on Fox Sports Net.